tomorrow. NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with scientists and a newborn origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na't masama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa agham at teknolohiya. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTFO, 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 stands for a better tomorrow. Searing young imaginations for a life with pure ambition, reaching out to different regions with a aim for a brighter future. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTFO, 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 stands for a better tomorrow. NSTFO. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with scientists and a newborn origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na't masama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa agham at teknolohiya. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTFO, 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 NSTFO.
Recording in progress.
For a better tomorrow. Searing young imaginations for a life with pure ambition, reaching out to different regions with a aim for a
Kita po talaga namin yung mga farmers namin na wala talagang pag-asa. Nakikita niyo po yung mga palay nila na nakakalat kung saan-saan, basa, sira.
May mga modernized po tayong post-harvest facilities, pero of course, yung farmers, hindi po nila to kayang bilhin, hindi po nila to ma-access. I think yun pa rin po yung problem, yun pa rin po yung main reason kung bakit stagnant pa rin po yung technological facilities sa Philippine agriculture.
Ako po si Lia Denistan.
Ako po si Lester John T. Sabadaw.
At ako po si Alpha Akain.
Gumawa po kami ng device para po sa pagtuyo at pag-store po ng ating mga palay. Nahayaan po niya ang bawat butil na mag-receive po ng same temperature at humidity para po maayos ang ating drying and storing.
Kahit yung mga maliliit lang po na farmers, yung maliliit lang po yung palayan, makakagamit po dun sa device namin. Ang tanging action para dun sa prototype namin is just one click of a button and the system goes on po. Then maghihintay na lang po sila.
Kung titignan natin ang history ng rice productions, the Philippines itself started the cultivation of rice. So it's very hard to see na kung sino pa yung nag-initiate, sila pa ang lacking sa mechanizations. What we wanted to do in the end was not only help these people, but we wanted to reform the future of farming.
Yung una pong sinabi ng teacher namin, sinanong niya po sa amin, what is the main goal of research? And that was to contribute to human knowledge. And that really inspired us and motivated us.
Hindi po ganun nakakatakot ang technology katulad ng iniisip ng iba. We need people to look into STEM courses more. We need people to see that science and research is really a vital part of making the community a better one po.
NSTF for
Pursue your master's degree in education, majoring in science, technology, or mathematics this school year. Join the Teach STEM Master's Degree Scholarship Program and get financial support from the Gokongwei Brothers Foundation for the duration of your studies. To apply, email scholarships@gbf.com.ph. You can also visit GBF's booth in the presentation hall here in NSTF's website to download the application forms. Deadline of entries is on October 15, 2021. Again, deadline of entries is on October 15, 2021. Good morning to all our participants and viewers. Welcome to the National Science and Technology Fair 2021, Day 3. The second day of this year's NSTF has been truly a success with all the interesting, motivating, and eye-opening discussions on health, environmental science, and marine biology. This morning, our session will make all of us rethink our current views, values, and actions as we envision and pivot to the creation of a more sustainable future on one planet we live in. Friends, it's my honor to introduce to you our speaker who will expound on this topic in this session. Our resource speaker is a professor at McGill and CRC in Sustainability Science. She received her BA in Biology and Environmental Studies from Oberlin College in Ohio in 1994, earned her master's in land resources in 1999 and her PhD in limnology and marine sciences in 2002. She is co-chair of the International Program on Ecosystem Change and Society and founding director of ResNet, a pan-Canadian network to improve management of working landscapes for the provision of multiple ecosystem services. Our speaker was a Leopold Leadership Fellow and a Trotter Public Policy Professor. At McGill, she has won awards for undergraduate teaching, graduate supervision, and contributions to campus sustainability. In 2012, she was selected to be one of 2 representatives of the Royal Society of Canada at the Summer Davos meeting of the World Economic Forum held in China. In 2016, she was named one of 6 NSERC Stacy Fellows. In 2020, she was a Clarivate Web of Science high-cited researcher, indicating a citation rate in the top 1% in her field. Her other awards include the Innovations in Sustainability Science Award by the Ecological Society of America, which she received along with her team in 2019. Friends, she is also a recipient of the Alice Johansson Award from the Mont Saint Hilaire Nature Center for a significant contribution towards the protection of nature. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker, Dr. Elena M. Bennett.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with scientists and newborn origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, taro na't masama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa agam at teknolohiya. Let's raise the flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTFO, 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 stands for a better tomorrow. Searing young, imagine.
Yes, Professor
Okay.
Bennett, the floor is now yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that really lovely introduction. I have to admit, I'm feeling a little intimidated after watching that amazing video about storage, rice storage. What an amazing project. And I'm sure there's so many other amazing projects as well. So just a very warm welcome, good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me here to talk with you all about how we aim for a better Anthropocene. So maybe I ought to start a little bit by just talking about what I mean when I say Anthropocene. What is that? And so what you're looking at here, starting on the bottom and with the longest to go, is all the epochs that Earth has been through, going from the bottom all the way up to our current official epoch up here at the top, the Holocene. And the Anthropocene, which I'll just put right on top here, is not an official epoch. That gets decided by the International Union of Geological Sciences, but it's a useful term that a lot of us use to acknowledge the human or anthro impact on the planet. And what it means to live in the Anthropocene is to live in a world that's really dominated by people. We affect the climate that we live in, we affect the diversity around us, we affect the structure of the landscape, and so much more. So I have 3 messages that I'd really like to convey to you in the next 20 minutes or so. And I'm just going to tell them to you right off the top. So the first of those messages is that our world in the Anthropocene is in grave danger. And I'll talk a little bit about why that is and what the signs are. The second message is that a better future is possible. And the final message, if you remember nothing else from this talk, is that we should, all of us, be asking ourselves, how can we, or as it's written here, how can you, as young STEM enthusiasts, as scientists, as educators, how can we all contribute to a good Anthropocene? So those are my 3 messages that I'll talk about today. Before I do that, let me just tell you a little bit about my path and how I got to where I am today. That's a picture of me as a young kid in the red shorts there with my best friend. And one thing about me as a kid is that I was always playing outside. Catching frogs, catching fish, climbing trees. And I never really thought of that as a career plan. It was just something that I really liked to do. At the same time, my family was really scientific. My dad was a chemist, my mom was a pharmacist. So science seemed the sort of natural path for me to follow. And I started into my education thinking, well, I'll come out of this as a chemist or a biologist. And eventually I found environmental history, and eventually from there, environmental science. And I guess the reason that I'm telling you this is simply to mention that I'm not maybe a traditional disciplinary scientist. I've always had to find a space for myself in between other places. And that's not always been easy, but it's very rewarding because I'm doing what I love to be doing. And as a result, one of the other things that I really do quite often is I make sure that I get my kids out in nature as often as I can, so that they have a chance to have the same thrill that I've had in being in nature and enjoying the natural world around them and learning about a lot of different environments. So just a little encouragement there for those of you who maybe don't find yourselves falling into a traditional science discipline or whatever, that there's a place out there for you, I'm sure of it. Okay, so let me continue on and let me start into that first message. And that message was that the world is in danger. So what do I mean when I say that the world is in danger? I don't mean that the end of the planet is near. The planet and indeed many species will certainly continue on even without people on the planet. So what I mean is that the state of our planet, which has been relatively stable for the last 10,000 years. We've had on Earth the most stable climate that we've ever had for the last 10,000 years until just recently. That 10,000 years of stability, by the way, is the 10,000 years that have allowed agriculture to thrive because of that stability. And that's really supported all of human development since agriculture began. But that state of the planet is in peril, and it's very likely to change in ways that could threaten continued human existence. So what you're looking at here is a set of planetary boundaries. And in 2009, the then director of the Stockholm Resilience Center, Dr. Johan Rockström, led a group of 28 internationally renowned scientists to identify these 9 processes that regulate the stability and the resilience of the Earth system. So you see things here like climate change, like stratospheric ozone depletion, ocean acidification, freshwater use, land use change, and biosphere integrity. And what these scientists said was that there are quantitative boundaries. And if we stay within those, humanity can continue to thrive and develop for generations to come. But if we cross them, we have a large risk of generating large-scale, abrupt, or even irreversible environmental changes. And in 2015, another scientist, Dr. Will Steffen, led another group of scientists in actually quantifying the edge of those boundaries. And so you can see that here with this orange line that delineates the zone of high risks. And then those scientists actually quantified what is the state of the planet relative to those risks? How are we doing? And so you can see on here, for example, that for biosphere integrity, we have already well crossed the red line, indicating that we have more extinctions per million species per year than the planet can manage. We've also crossed that boundary for phosphorus and nitrogen flows. Those are the biogeochemical flows of the fertilizers that maintain agricultural production, but that also threaten water quality around the world. And we're reaching into a zone of uncertainty where these orange bars are for things like land use change and climate change, where we haven't crossed that boundary yet, but we're on our way to it. And why is that so important? Well, part of the reason it's important is that we don't really understand what the outcome will be. So those 9 systems were chosen by Johan Rockström and colleagues because they have thresholds. So we often assume that systems work like this here on the left with a linear response. So some condition changes and the ecosystem state changes linearly in relation to that change in external condition. And so an example of that from daily life is that I might plant, say, 3 tomato plants in my garden. And if I do that and each plant makes 10 tomatoes, I'm going to get 30 tomatoes. And if I plant 5 plants, I'll get 50 tomatoes. But not all systems work like that. And those 9 systems in the planetary boundaries work more like this curve on the right with a threshold response where you get a sudden decrease in ecosystem state, even when your ecosystem condition is just changing a little bit. So an example of that might be the flea beetles that are eating my tomato plants in my garden right now. And flea beetles, like the populations of most animals, have nonlinear growth. So there's only a few beetles at first, but they reproduce and soon there's thousands. So that means that at first, the rate at which they're eating my tomato plant leaves is slow, but soon it becomes very fast until perhaps there's little left to eat and my tomato plants aren't making me 10 tomatoes each anymore. So the idea with these planetary boundaries is that they have these kinds of threshold responses and that we are past or getting close to passing several of those critical boundaries and that we should be very, very concerned about that. And so, okay, if you're like me, then what happens to me when I start talking about this stuff is that my brain starts picturing images like this, death, destruction, something uncertain, but really bad coming in the future. And the problem is that that kind of image can be really stifling to our ability to do anything. It just sort of depresses us and keeps us in bed. And remember that I said I wanted you to come away from this talk with the idea that things can be better, and that you and I should always be asking ourselves, how can we make it better? What can I do to make it better? So for me, I like to think more of images like these, something that depicts not just a natural world, but that depicts people interacting with that natural world in some way, and doing so in a way that is, quite frankly, really beautiful and nice. And the reason that that's important is I think of this as that it's like steering a car or steering a bike. And if you've ever done either of those things, you know that you tend to steer towards what you're looking at. So if we have bad images, we steer towards those, even if we don't intend to. So we need images like this to give us something to aim for. Even as we have scientific knowledge about planetary boundaries that tells us a lot of detailed knowledge and numbers about what we need to keep away from, we can have images like this that tell us, where do we want to go to? What's your vision for what a better world looks like? And so with those visions, I like to think that we can have a good or even maybe a fabulous Anthropocene. And so the question for me then is, well, what do we need to do to get there? How do we get to that better future? How do we walk ourselves away from those planetary boundaries and keep our planet safe and keep people healthy and living good lives at the same time? So I want to introduce a project that I'm working on that answers this question by saying what we do is we look at things that people are already doing to make the world around them better. And there's several advantages of looking around at things people are already doing. And we call those things seeds, and we call the project Seeds of Good Anthropocenes. And the reason we call them seeds is that these are often projects that are kind of happening in the margins. They're small, but they're inspiring, and they might grow. And when they grow, they might change the soil around them. And it tells us something in these projects about what people want when they envision a better future, because we don't all think of the same thing. So let me give you two examples of what these seeds of good Anthropocenes might be, so that you can have a better sense of what kind of thing do I mean. And maybe I should say that, when I was watching the video at the very start of this with the students who invented this inexpensive means to store grain better, that to me is a great example of something that might be a seed. It's a project that can make people's interaction with the natural world better. And I found it really interesting that even though those students were doing what to me looked like a very environmental project, they won a prize actually for robotics. So you don't necessarily have to be an environmentalist to take on a project like these seeds that make the world around you better. So here's two examples of seeds. So this one is called Health and Harmony, and they work in Indonesian Borneo. And they work to address human health and deforestation as a sort of climate solution. And essentially what they do is they partner with local communities. They provide low-cost healthcare in exchange for commitments to reduce deforestation. And they've seen remarkable change. So since 2007, a little over 10 years ago, they've had an 88% reduction in illegal logging households. They've stabilized the loss of primary forest, and in fact are growing about 20,000 hectares back. And they've protected many different endangered species. It's really a stunning success, and perhaps the most stunning is that at the same time, they've had a big impact on human health with a 90% decrease in the mortality rate for children under the age of 5. And that's pretty amazing example just down the road from you. And there are examples just down the road from me as well. So this is just down the street from my house. It's called Centropole Roulant. And as with Health and Harmony, this is about cycles. And in this case, the very name roulant means rolling, which gives us the idea of a cycle. And this is an organization that connects people to rooftop gardens, to urban pollinators, food, and of course to each other. And it has 3 branches. There's a Meals on Wheels program that brings food to people who otherwise couldn't get it in the city. There's a farm and garden program, and there's a series of different collectives that address sustainability interests in Montreal, including, for example, a collective of people fixing and learning to fix bikes. So that's one that exists down the road from me. So hopefully that gives you a little sense of what these projects can be like. And my colleagues and I have used an international participatory process, and we've identified over 500 of these seeds of good Anthropocenes from all around the world, which we're studying to try to understand how and why they occur. And we've built a database about them. And that includes everything we need to know to understand how seeds are established and how they grow and spread and inspire change elsewhere. And maybe one thing I'll say, just looking at this map, is that you might see that some areas look darker than others. And that's not necessarily because there aren't seeds in those places. It's simply because we haven't been able to collect them yet. And so at the end of this talk, I'll direct you to our website, where you can click on a link and submit a seed of your own, which we will happily add to our database so that we can learn a little bit more about what people are doing around the world. Okay, so what are we doing with these seeds other than just providing inspiration for people and a better image and an understanding of what people want from the future, so we have a good place to look? We're also trying to understand how these seeds or projects grow. What context do we need to provide to make fertile ground for these seeds to change values? And how does the changing of values make the ground more fertile for other seeds? Maybe creating replication or possibilities for seeds to grow elsewhere. And in the few years that we've been doing this project, we've learned quite a bit, and I'll just focus on a couple things here. So one is that no action is small. Even small actions change the landscape of possibilities for someone else. And that's been really interesting to me, because I think sometimes we get in this mode where we feel like, well, it's, these problems are so big, there's nothing I can do about them. But it turns out there is. The second is that there's room for everyone. And people of all ages. You don't need to be an environmentalist. Many different skills are valuable. We've seen in that video, I'll just come back to, that robotics can play a really important role in improving the way, for example, that we feed people around us, and ensure that our farmers and communities have healthy lives. And then finally, that people seek connection to nature and people seek connection to each other. And that seems to be a really strong feature of a lot of the seeds that we've collected, is that we are looking for connection to one another. So why might this matter to you? So remember that I want you to walk away thinking about what you can do. Some things that occur to me: you don't have to be powerful to start a seed. You don't have to be white or Western or male. You don't have to hold government office or any office at all. And you don't have to be rich or come from a wealthy area. We see these seeds started by all kinds of people all around the world, and they have massive impact. And the beauty of these seeds is that they're bottom up. Anyone can engage in making the world a better place. You don't have to wait. What you do need to have is you need to have a vision. You need to have a plan. And you need to have energy and enthusiasm to pursue that vision, the kind of energy and enthusiasm that make other people around you want to join in. And I'll just repeat it again. Any vision is good. It doesn't have to be somebody else's vision. The best one is the one that comes from inside of you. So I want to talk a little bit about what educators can do with this. So since we're at a science and technology fair where we have a lot of students and a lot of educators, there's a lot of things that we can do and are doing in education. So one thing is that we can use classroom activities to design games. We know a number of places where students are designing online games that are meant to be played by others, or paper games in a box that help people to explore good Anthropocenes, that are, say, collective games where people try to lead the world down a better path. You can work in a classroom setting on scenario development. So we explore students' visions of a better future. What does the next generation want from a good future? That's a really important question to ask. And I think we're not hearing enough from young folks about what pieces are important pieces of a better future. We can teach students at all stages and all ages that you don't have to wait for someone else to change the system. You can step in right now. And we can provide an interdisciplinary education that features understanding systems. I know, having started in chemistry and biology, that STEM training is really important, and it's something that can be hard to do and hard to get, but I want to make at least a little soft pitch for those in-between places that are maybe a little underexplored, and don't be afraid to get in there and explore those places as well. Okay, so let me just finish up here. I'm getting to the end of my short time with you all. And in finishing up, I think I just want to say that we have this amazing opportunity to create the world that we want, in stories and in our actions, that we can make the world a place where we avoid crossing planetary boundaries. We can make our communities better in many ways, and we don't have to wait to do that. We should all be asking ourselves now how we can put what we know, what we can do, whatever our special talents are, we can use those in service of a better world, whether you're an engineer or an astrophysicist or an environmentalist or a biologist. Somewhere, somehow, you have some talent or skill that you can use in service of creating a better world. And so stories are a really important part of that, thinking about a better future, imagining a better future. But we also need action. So I'd encourage you to ask yourself, what are your unique skills? What do you love to do? And how can you bring that to bear on bringing about a better future? Okay, so as promised, I'll just point you to the website for the Seeds of a Good Anthropocene project. It's right there at the top. And you'll see something that looks like this banner if you go to that website. And if you head on over here to the left, you can click on this button that says contribute a seed. And when you click on that, a form will come up that will let you contribute an idea, and we will see to it that gets into our database and gets recorded. And so with that, I'll end there. I think we might have some time for questions, and just say thank you again for inviting me to be part of this really special experience. Thank you.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizon.
Thank you so much, Professor Bennett, for that very insightful talk. We all want, of course, a fabulous future. It's also inspiring to see that we don't have to wait for someone else to change the system, as we can all step in and be proactive in making the world a better place. So at this point, Professor, we will entertain a couple of questions from our audience. We encourage our participants to engage with us through the chat box here on Zoom and in the comments section on Facebook. So while waiting for the questions to pour in, Professor, let me raise this question. We are confronted with many social and ecological issues, environmental changes, and others, no, not to mention the current global health crisis brought about by the pandemic, which, of course, in one way or another are interconnected. But Professor, as a sustainability scientist, which do you consider is the most pressing issue that needs to be immediately addressed?
Wow, that's a very big question, a really important question. And I suppose we all have our favorite or pet issues. It's hard to pick one that is the biggest. And in fact, I think sometimes I react against hearing like, oh, we need to all focus on climate, or we need to all focus on biodiversity, or we need to all focus on the pandemic. I think those are the three that I've been hearing a lot. And they are really truly and deeply important. But I want to make a pitch for the idea that we need to be thinking a little bit about how all of these things, problems interact. And that if we go about trying to solve one and forget that the others exist, that we might create problems, unexpected problems in other places. So my approach right now is to say, I think that what we should be doing is looking at some goals, like maybe the Sustainable Development Goals, and saying, okay, how can we get there? How can we get to this place that we want to get to? Keeping in mind all of these different really pressing problems that we're facing on the planet.
All right, thank you for that, Professor. Really, we have to probably focus ourselves on the goals rather than on the many issues confronting us. So thank you for that, Professor Bennett. We have here some questions. Let me read the first one. Are there any best practices in Canada, in schools, that we can adopt in the Philippines so we can contribute to good Anthropocene?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would say there's a wide variety of educational philosophies across Canada. So it might be hard to pick one that exists everywhere. But some of the things that I see, I think, are that I really like are things that encourage kind of self-discovery. So, research projects, I think, like some of the research projects that you're featuring here at the National Science and Technology Fair are exactly the kind of thing that help students really engage in the process of research and process of discovery that is self-directed. And that just inevitably leads to better outcomes than, things where we're sort of learning by rote.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that. Thank you, Professor. We need to encourage self-discovery among our learners, and for our Filipino teachers, of course, provide self-directed activities. Okay, let me read some more questions. Okay, I think this one is already connected, but let me read it to you anyway. You might want to add or elaborate on this. Any specific skills or topics on good Anthropocene which we can integrate in the Philippine curriculum? Because Professor Bennett, we have a number of teacher viewers. I mean, most of our viewers also are not just students, but also science teachers and supervisors.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see things in the curriculum about interdisciplinarity and systems. Those are very, very hard things to teach, but they're really important for giving us a better way to look at the world. And then, of course, because it's my background, I think it's really essential that we're thinking about the environment, but there's so many different ways to go about that. You know, it doesn't just have to be an environmental science course. It can easily be biology, chemistry, physics, microbiology, all different sorts of courses that can still touch on issues having to do with the environment.
All right, so we really have to explore interdisciplinarity of courses. Okay,
Yeah.
another question, Professor. Is sustainable development or footprint-based economy impossible in our current economic model, which is currency-based?
Yeah, that's a really big debate, and I think I worry a lot that our current economic model, which really features growth, it needs growth to keep going, but growth is inherently at odds with trying to address issues around the planetary boundaries. And so I personally worry a lot that this fixation on growth, which is kind of the engine of keeping our economy going, is problematic unless we can find some other way to do that or direct or steer that is more suited to the environment. It's a really prescient question.
Yes, I think, well, the one who asked that would also need to research on that topic because, well, as mentioned by Professor Bennett, it's still debatable.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check the chat box here on Zoom if we have questions. And to our specialists monitoring our live stream on Facebook, are there other questions raised by our viewers? Let me check the chat box again. Just keep your questions pouring in. Let's maximize the time that we have here with Professor Bennett. By the way, she is based in Canada. So it's, Professor, what time is it there in Canada?
It's 9:45 at night.
9:45 at night. Okay, here in the Philippines, it's 9:45 in the morning.
Yeah, that's it. We're as usual. You're in the next morning. So we're as usual lagging behind you by about 12 hours.
Yes. Okay, so I think we're good, Professor. I think all of our viewers and participants here on Zoom are very much satisfied with your talk. So once again, we extend our sincerest gratitude to our guest speaker, to Professor Elena Bennett. Our viewers and participants for sure would want to plant seeds of good Anthropocene to be better and wiser stewards of this planet. And for that, Professor, allow us to award this certificate of recognition.
Thank you so much. This was really a pleasure to participate in the event.
Yes, thank you, Professor. Allow me to read the citation. Let's flash the certificate now. All right, there you go. So the Department of Education, DepEd Complex, Meralco Avenue, Pasig City, Certificate of Recognition. This certificate is awarded to Dr. Elena M. Bennett for serving as a resource speaker during the 2021 National Science and Technology Fair held via a virtual event platform on August 31 to September 3, 2021, given this third day of September 2021 in Pasig City, Philippines. Signed by the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction, Yusek Diosdado M. San Antonio. Once again, congratulations, Professor Bennett, and thank you for gracing this year's NSTF.
Thank you.
Despite modern solutions, access to clean water remains a problem in rural Philippines, even in water-surrounded areas like Iloilo.
I come from a not really high-class community, so I see a lot of our neighbors sharing well that they had to call delivery trucks to have potable water in their home. We're not sure of how safe and how potable these water are. Ako si Marvin Araneta.
At ako si Lorraine Joy Bales.
Our research is entitled Endocarbon Quantum Dots Based Selective and Sensitive Fluorescent Probe.
Portable in situ water monitoring prototype kit for mercury and lead.
Speaking with concerned government agencies, they found that water monitoring costs a lot, starting at 1,000 pesos per metal per sample. So they built a portable water monitoring kit using carbon quantum dots with less than 1,000 pesos and an old smartphone.
Carbon quantum dots has the capability to fluoresce. So it emits light. Yung light ay nagdidim depending on the amount of heavy metals present.
The device can detect as low as 1 part per billion or half a teaspoon of lead or mercury in an Olympic-sized pool. Through color signals red, green, and blue, the prototype can also specify the kind of metal.
Treatment will cost a lot. You have to make sure first that may problem talaga yung area. So, ganun ka-important as well yung detection.
Their project, done in their senior year at Iloilo National High School, won one of the top awards during the Department of Education's 2020 National Science and Technology Fair, and was among the Philippines' entries to the 2020 International Science and Engineering Fair. Compact and affordable, they hope this can be used in far-flung areas where labs are inaccessible.
Just like a small box. And in terms of electricity, this device just uses a power bank or even some sort of small batteries.
As young researchers, they believe this marks the first step of being a champion of climate change and protecting the environment.
Doing research in the pursuit of helping people is a noble cause. The individuals who's likely to manage the future world is going to be us. So by starting from a young age, we need to be able to establish then what is the ideal world we ought to live.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation. Science is a new board origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na sama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa aghamang teknolohiya. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities. NSTF4, 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 NSTF4 stands for a better tomorrow. NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation. Scientists and newborn origination, simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, taron at masama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa agham at teknolohiya. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, from knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities. NSTFO, 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 NSTFO stands for a better tomorrow.
Pangarap kong maging isang successful na mechanical engineer. Pangarap ko din na masuklian yung mga nakatulong sa buhay ko.
Pangarap ko pong makapagtapos ng pag-aral upang matulungan ang aking pamilya.
The Gokongwei Brothers Foundation was founded in 1992 from an initial endowment by my father, John Gokongwei, and 3 of his brothers. Its objective is really to support the growth of educational opportunities for Filipinos.
I seem to recall in the Philippines there's not very much foundation work here being done. I worked and studied with my family and decided to put the Gokongwei Brothers Foundation by contributing shares of stock from me and my brothers to form the nucleus of the company.
My father, due to various circumstances, including the Second World War and the earlier death of his father, he was not able to complete his university. No? He's basically a high school graduate. But because of his innate curiosity and love for learning, he read a lot of books, he read a lot of magazines and articles. This helped him become a successful entrepreneur. He was able to pursue a master's education for himself, where he really found a lot of value in that. He saw that the difference that education made in his life, and he wanted to share that opportunity with as many Filipinos as he could.
Ako po si James Temprano, 21 years old, pangalawa sa magkakapatid. Si Papa kinuha as a technician ng isang company sa Mindoro. Nagustuhan niya yung pamumuhay, nagkaroon ng business, then sinama niya na kami doon. So doon na kami lumaki. First year high school ako, namatay si Papa, heart enlargement. Ako, mindset ko noon, wala na kaming pera. So, hindi ako makatapos ng pag-aaral. Nag-open yung GBF na mag-offer ng scholarship. Si tita ko, tinanong niya ako, James, gusto mong mag-aral? Walang alinlangan na sinabi ko, sige po, gusto ko talaga mag-aral. Nag-exam ako sa scholarship hanggang sa pumasa, hanggang sa nag-aral na ako. Doon na ako nagsimula mag-grow, doon na ako naka-realize kung paano mabuhay dito sa mundon to.
The Scholarly One program is a TESDA-accredited program that provides underprivileged youth with a 1-year scholarship for mechatronics and instrumentation, which means that they learn how to operate machines in a factory floor. And after they pass the TESDA exam, they are offered jobs in Universal Robina Corporation.
Ang trabaho ko po ngayon is production operator. As a production operator, kailangan laging secure yung makina ko ng maayos na naiwasan yung trouble. Pangalawa, kailangan yung quality ng products laging nasisecure na hindi mako-contaminate. Sobrang laki na naitulong sa akin ang trabaho dito sa Universal Robina Corporation Cavite Plants. Kasi nakatulong ako sa pamilya namin ng maayos. Gawa ng stable na yung trabaho ko, so regular na ako dito.
Our thrust for the foundation is STEM education, so science, technology, engineering, and math education. We believe that the path to progress for any nation is through industrialization, and we feel that through STEM programs, this is probably the best path forward.
My name is Rosan Carmona. I'm 24 years old and I'm the GBF JJ Summit Petrochemical STEM Scholar. I came from a simple family living in the mountains of Lubo. Growing up in a less privileged community has not only offered financial but also academic challenges. But that helped me realize the value of education. Working here as JJ Summit Petrochemical Corporation has been a great experience. JJ Summit is providing different opportunities, tools, trainings, and resources that are all valuable for me to be equipped and ready on the task I'm assigned to.
We recognize that uplifting education in the Philippines is not the job of one institution alone. It's a partnership, and our objective is really to work with very credible and capable partners such as De La Salle for engineering and the Ateneo for management.
All I wanted to do was graduate for my family, but I was studying my course, I realized that the theory had a lot of applications for my country. The Gokongwei grant has helped me not only for me to be able to reach those resources financially, but it has also helped my work to be recognized.
It's always been my plan to graduate with a master's degree. I want to pursue a career in applied mathematics. The GBF Next Gen Scholarship for Excellence assisted my parents financially in providing me a high-quality education.
We will continue with our focus on STEM education.
Hopefully, we're able to help a few thousand Filipinos achieve education access that they may not have had.
Gusto pong magpasalamat sa GBF STEM Scholarship for Excellence kasi po nabigyan po ako ng ganitong klaseng oportunidad. Nagbukas po sila ng pintuan upang sa gayon makapag-aral po uli ako.
GBF has helped me take that first step the moment that they granted me with the Next Gen Scholarship.
Vision to empower the future through education.
This is not just my legacy or the GBF's legacy.
This is our legacy.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Surely you would not want to miss any part of this event, particularly the presentations from day one. All topics resonate the significance of research and its relevance to science education, especially to our teacher coaches and young scientists steering more thoughtful considerations as they navigate the realm of research. As we continue today, let's journey with our next speaker as we explore space science. Our speaker is a graduate of BS Electrical Engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and later earned his PhD in Electrical Engineering and Telecommunications at the University of New South Wales, Sydney, Australia. His postdoctoral assignments that include being visiting professor at the Tokyo Institute of Technology in Japan, University of California, Berkeley, and University of California, San Diego, among many others, have greatly contributed to his vast experience, making him indisputably an expert in his field. His research interests that include wireless communications, public safety and emergency response communications, and small satellites for scientific Earth observation and communications attests to his knowledge and reflects his flexibility. In fact, he has published several journals, and the most recent of which is something I'm sure you'll be interested to read, is titled Local LTE, 600 Megahertz Community LTE Networks for Rural Areas in the Philippines. As a licensed electronic engineer, he relentlessly worked his way up as head of a wireless communications engineering laboratory at UPD, consultant to DOST Advanced Science and Technology Institute, later as chairman for Telecommunications and Computer Technologies Incorporated, then co-founder and advisor of Item Hound Incorporated. Interestingly, he also joined the academe,
where he started as an instructor, then he trailed his way up to being assistant professor, to associate professor, to professor in Electrical and Electronics Engineering Institute at the University of the Philippines, until he became director from 2009 to 2015. Expanding his turf, he became the interim director for Philippines California Advanced Research Institute of the Commission on Higher Education. After his stint at SHED, he transferred to DOST and held the director position. At present, he is the Director General of the Philippine Space Agency. He is undeniably a role model honed by time to excellence, from being an outstanding student to being an outstanding teacher. Now, his passion is reflected in his work. And it's no wonder that among his numerous achievements include Most Outstanding Electronics Engineer in the field of education, Engineering Excellence Prize, and regional winner and semi-finalist for Dangal ng Bayan Award by Civil Service Commission in 2019. Talk about love for research. He has worked on several projects such as sustained support for space technology and applications, mastery, innovation, and advancement from 2018 to 2020, in which he was the project lead. So we'll cut the trace from here. Let's all welcome our second guest speaker as he talks about space science, the Director General of Philippine Space Agency, Dr. Joel Joseph S. Marciano, Jr.
Thank you very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with sciences and a new board origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na sama-sama everyone. Kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa aghamang teknolohiya. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTF4, 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 NSTF4 stands for a better tomorrow. Searing young imaginations for a life with pure ambition. Reaching out to different regions with a aim for a brighter future. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high.
Okay, good morning. Can you see my screen now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So let me begin my talk. Once again, I'm very honored and to be here to talk to you about PhilS's initiatives in space science, education, and capacity building. I wish to thank the Department of Education for this opportunity, and of course also to the other organizers. So I'm from the Philippine Space Agency. My name is Joel Marciano. I'm was appointed as Director General last year to lead this new agency that we're building up. So let me begin my talk now. Okay. What usually comes to our minds when we think of space? I guess it's fairly easy to think about rockets and astronauts and space colonies and perhaps even Star Wars. These are certainly valid and natural, and they have a place in our collective consciousness that yearns to understand our origins and our place in the universe. However, I'm here to also tell you about other aspects of space so that we can give a more complete picture, perhaps. So let's begin. The Philippine Space Agency, with the assistance of DepEd, and the Stamina for Space program conducted a baseline assessment for space education in the DepEd schools across the country. Among the many questions we asked one of the questions we asked is, are there career opportunities for Filipinos in space? There were 3,383 respondents that were composed of teachers, and the result shows that 72%, that's 72% of respondents were not aware of career opportunities for Filipinos in space. So while we have a popular understanding of space, perhaps influenced by popular culture, media, or movies, we can see here that many of us are perhaps not really aware of what opportunities exist to build a career in the space sector. On the other hand, for those 28% who said yes, there are career opportunities for Filipinos in space, they identified the following opportunities. You can be an engineer, a scientist, physicist, an astronaut. You can work in atmospheric science, that's the largest one there, and be an astronomer. You can work in the academe. You can work for PAG-ASA, the Weather Bureau, or for the Department of Science and Technology. You can be in aeronautics, in aerospace. And that's really what they thought. Now, on another survey item, where we asked about the importance of space education, we saw that 96% of the responders agreed on its importance. So that's either agree or strongly agree. Now, this motivates us to further promote understanding and widen the appreciation of space and the many exciting opportunities it holds today for us today and for the future. As we will see later in this presentation, education plays a key role in the development of our space ecosystem. And we aim to address these gaps and deepen the public's appreciation on space on all educational levels. The PhilSA aims to work together with relevant departments and agencies in doing so. Now, our efforts here span basic education or K-12, such as the development of curriculum, co-curricular activities, and teacher development, to the undergraduate program, such as introducing new programs, course mapping, internship opportunities, and also to postgraduate programs through scholarships, fellowships, and mentorship programs. Now, space education and awareness is one of the key development areas, or KDAs, in space science and technology applications of the Philippine Space Agency. So perhaps we can take a step back and provide some further background on this new agency, our space agency. The PhilSA, Philippine Space Agency, was established by virtue of the signing of Republic Act 11363 by President Duterte. RA 11363 is the Philippine Space Act, which was signed on August 8, 2019, just a little over 2 years ago today. The Philippine Space Act also outlines the following key development areas in space science technology applications, namely national security and development, space research and development, hazard management and climate studies, space industry capacity building, and international cooperation in space education and awareness. So we can see that there is a wide range of areas that space science and technology applications, or SSTA, covers. Among the KDAs is space education and awareness. We stress the importance here of space education and awareness because it is the backbone of the development of our people who have many different and crucial roles in our space ecosystem. What is this so-called space ecosystem anyway? The space ecosystem has several components comprising of the so-called upstream and the downstream, and of course up to the end users that utilize the various products and services. In a way, you can also look at this as some kind of a value chain. The upstream sector on the left deals with the scientific and technological foundations of space programs, manufacturing and production of space infrastructure. In other words, it is about building satellites, developing components and subsystems for said satellites, and integrating them or putting them together, subsequently testing them and then launching them. This may also include relevant equipment or systems on the ground that straddle the middle between upstream and downstream that control, operate, and communicate with our satellites. Now, this area also deals with the development and operation of rockets, spaceports, and related facilities. Now, in the middle, the downstream sector, on the other hand, deals with the daily operations of space infrastructure and down-to-earth activities or application verticals. This includes satellite data and services such as for Earth observation, telecommunications, the internet, and navigation, such as global positioning systems. There's a demand for these services which these technologies aim to address through various applications, and that's really where we reach our end users, consumers, government, industry, nonprofits, and across various sectors: defense and security, agriculture, marine, environment, energy, transport, mining, etc. There are many applications of the upstream and downstream of space. Now, speaking of the upstream, when we talk about our satellites, our effort in developing satellites, the past 7 years have been quite eventful in terms of our efforts to build the local space ecosystem, both upstream and downstream. Shown here, focusing on the upstream components, are the small satellite milestones of the Philippines, with its microsatellites Diwata 1 and Diwata 2, and the nanosatellites starting with Maya 1, and the upcoming larger satellite to date, which we call MULA, Multispectral Unit for Land Assessment, that is now in its development phase. Now, our small satellite development activities began before 2014, where a baseline study on space activities and infrastructure for the Philippines was started. It was clear from the study that our country needed to develop critical capabilities in this area, especially in light of our vulnerability to natural disasters and climate change. And in 2014, the opportunity for Filipino engineers to build small satellites for Earth observation came up through a cooperation with Japanese universities, thus giving birth to the PHL microsatellite program. Now, this program led to the development of Diwata 1 and its launch from the International Space Station in April 27, 2016. A successful contact with Diwata 1 was established through our ground station in Quezon City through the Advanced Science and Technology Institute immediately after its launch. Also, the ground stations in Japan contributed to that contact, and it undertook its mission from 2016 to 2020. In 2020, Diwata 1 re-entered the atmosphere and it ended its mission. Now, the 50-kilogram microsatellite Diwata 1 was followed by its successor, Diwata 2, which is still in operation. Now, shown here, that's Diwata 2. This continues to give us valuable data through the Stamina for Space program, which also undertakes local value addition to our satellite development efforts by building local payload and bus systems. That means the mechanical, electrical systems of the satellite and its cameras and other instruments. We are now attempting, of course, to try to build that in our own laboratories. Now, around the time Diwata 2 was developed, a 1-kilogram technology demonstration nano satellite, Maya 1, was also built by Filipino scholars in Japan. So these nanosatellites are called Maya nanosatellites, and we have successfully deployed Maya 1, Maya 2, and just last Sunday, the weekend, we were able to bring Maya 3 and Maya 4 to the International Space Station through a Falcon 9 rocket of SpaceX and its Dragon capsule. Well, lastly, we are also looking forward to the next step for the Philippines' small satellites, and an advanced multispectral imager satellite weighing over 100 kilograms is now under development. Now, I mentioned just last Sunday, we witnessed the successful rocket launch, and the continuation of our Maya CubeSats. So it's Maya 3 and Maya 4. The difference being that these nanosatellites were built now in a local university setting. When we sent Filipino engineers to Filipino engineering scholars to Japan, specifically Kyushu Institute of Technology in 2016 to build the first Maya CubeSat, we committed to the idea of building and innovating future Maya CubeSats in our own laboratories. So with Maya 3 and Maya 4 lifted up to the ISS through a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket and a Cargo Dragon capsule, we were able to achieve that proximate goal. So why do we build satellites? Let me try to share a story about computers. So let's take a little step back and talk about computers and computing. In particular, about how they have been changing. So you see in the picture a rather common picture of a computer room, rather old. You see the CRT monitors, not even LEDs or LCD monitors. Now, from personal computers or desktop desktop PCs that we see in this picture, computers and computing are evolving. So we now see these racks and racks of computers in so-called server farms that make up the so-called cloud. And that this cloud, I mentioned, houses these racks of computers that are air-conditioned and powered up 24/7. And these things form the underlying infrastructure of the internet that we all use. Now, these things are evolving. Of course, we now have computers that are small enough to fit in the palm of our hand, computers that are in our pockets. Pretty soon, they might be in our clothes and maybe in our wallets. Computers are becoming increasingly embedded in the environment. So the things we compute or use computers for are also changing. We used to think that when we do computing, we are confined to fancy computer simulations, numerical modeling, computer-aided design work. However, when we check our email, update our Facebook status or post something, update our blog, tweet, upload, or stream videos, we are also computing. We are contributing to the computational load being carried out by our own devices and also by some unseen, invisible infrastructure of computers, servers, and network devices that are distributed across the world that make up the internet. So they say computers and computing will go the way of the light bulb, wherein it started several decades ago as an exclusive technology and not everybody had it, right? Just like how electricity was in the 18th century, early 19th century, until a point where everybody has it. So much so that if we don't have it, or we don't have access to it, we complain. So we go someplace and there's no electricity or there's no internet. We say, this place, I cannot be productive here. I have to be connected. I have to have electricity. So computers as well that do the work for us are becoming a vanishing technology. This means that they are becoming more pervasive, and we assume that they will always be there and available for us to use. When we cite my favorite quote from Mark Weiser, the late Mark Weiser, the so-called father of ubiquitous computing, who famously said, "The most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it." So the most profound technologies are those that go into our background for us not to really bother with them. We just assume that they will work and that they can serve us. So computers are going the same way. Where else do you think computers are vanishing into? So if you said space, I guess that's correct. Computers are vanishing into space. So computers are also getting to space where they are becoming part of the invisible infrastructure and disappearing into the background, ready to serve humans, our society, and our planet. So this is Diwata-1, a scientific Earth observation microsatellite on the verge of being deployed from the ISS through an extension of a robot arm. Okay. So we deployed Diwata-1 into space orbit in 2016. Now, Diwata-1 is the Philippines' first microsatellite, or should I say the Philippines' first computer in space orbit. Why do we say that? Well, if you look inside Diwata-1 and you look at all those green boxes, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at least, there are at least 7 computers inside that balikbayan box size microsatellite. These computers control, interpret, execute, process vital commands, subsystems, and payloads to ensure that the mission is undertaken and accomplished properly. So you see examples of computers that control the radios, computers that control the batteries, the solar panels, computers that control the cameras, and computers that control the pointing accuracy of this satellite. We take it for granted that this satellite is 400 kilometers away. And if you have to take a picture of something that is 400 kilometers away, we have to be very precise in our pointing. So it's if you are off by a fraction of a degree, instead of taking a picture of Metro Manila, you might be pointing at Bicol, or you might be pointing at Ilocos. So that's not a successful mission if we are not able to acquire images of areas that we desire. So, is the Philippines really building and deploying satellites? I guess yes. But well, actually, we are putting computers in orbit. And the next question is, what for? Why do we put computers in orbit? Well, one answer is a four-letter word, data. Data that we use to help us better understand our planet, our surroundings, and our environment. Data that help us make informed decisions and better programs that can improve society and our lives. Examples of the kind of data that we get from satellites, specifically from our Earth observation microsatellites, Diwata-1 and Diwata-2. Using Diwata's High Precision Telescope, or HPT, which give us 5-meter resolution on the ground, we can detect changes in surface features, such as in urban areas. You can see intricate features such as residences, infrastructure, and roads in general. Now here we present an image showing the changes in land cover, which means the different features on land, such as zones that are developed or so-called built-up areas, areas that remain green or covered by vegetation, also bodies of water. We can detect new features such as roads, buildings, and residential areas that are being constructed. We can also use images like this to distinguish water from the dry areas, which can tell us which places may have been flooded, say after a typhoon or after heavy rains. Now, this is made possible using Diwata-2's High Precision Telescope to take pictures and we process the image output. From land, we can move to water. Using Diwata-1's images, we can monitor important ecosystems. In this case, we highlight Manila Bay. Using Diwata True-Color images, the turbid areas along the bay are visible from space. We don't actually know what's in the water, but what we can say is that it appears murky. Most of the highly turbid areas are in the mouth of the Pasig River and in the aquaculture areas up north of the bay in Bulacan. So, being able to get this type of information is important for monitoring the state of this ecosystem and also for rehabilitation management efforts of our coastal areas. So if we clean it up, we can take a picture again and we see how well our efforts have been in cleaning up the bay. What you can see here is a Diwata-2 image of Taal volcano captured by the Stamina for Space team. This is an image of the volcano on January 6, 2020, last year, a few days before the eruption. 16 days after the eruption of the volcano, Diwata-2 was able to capture again. This is a post-eruption image on January 27, 2020. So here we see a before and an after image, which if you have something from before and something from after, then you can detect changes. To detect changes, we compare the pre-eruption and post-eruption image. The image on the top, the image on the left shows the pre-disaster image, while the bottom right shows the area still covered in ash after processing the image from the January 27 image. So this is an example of a change detection application. So if we can detect objects in the satellite image, we can also detect changes in some of those objects. Lastly, we look at, for Diwata, we look at the potential of Diwata images to monitor typhoons. Shown here are two different ones, Tisoy and Quinta, with their features captured by satellite images. Now, being able to utilize and mobilize our own images is a critical capability, especially for a disaster-prone country such as ours. So this is using a wide field telescope. We also use satellites of other countries. In this case, satellite images from a constellation of satellites that provide commercial service, which help us, which we use in preparing for disasters and assessing the damage that they cause. So space technologies are central in addressing our country's incessant need to prepare for and respond to natural disasters. As an example, shown in the picture is how we mobilize space data before and after typhoons. By getting satellite images of the areas before and after, our computers can do the change detection and determine areas which have been flooded. For example, the output is shown in the map on the bottom right, where we see streaks of blue, which indicate areas of probable flooding. Now, this information does not stay with the team. This information is provided to the Office of Civil Defense and the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council to help arrive at better estimates of the extent of the damage from the disaster, allowing us to allocate proper resources for rehabilitation, response, and recovery. In the satellite image here shown on the left, we use our algorithms, particularly so-called machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, to detect building footprints. That proved useful in the case of the 2018 Naga Cebu landslide, where we were able to generate a map that overlaid the building footprints in the satellite image, showing the extent of the landslide, here demarcated in red. The blocks there, the brown blocks or squares that you see are building footprints detected by artificial intelligence computational techniques implemented by our teams. Now, this map helped emergency workers and responders with more actionable information on the ground in their efforts to rescue and recover. It helped them identify areas where to dig first in the hope of looking for survivors. As shown in the middle and the right image are the valiant responders holding the maps that were generated by our teams. Now, to an engineer and a scientist, there's perhaps nothing more gratifying than to see their outputs being applied in the real world. In this case, in the form of space-borne data applied to the heavy task of trying to save lives and property. This is an example of an end-to-end effort where our investments in space capabilities, satellites, ground and computing facilities, and people prove valuable in turning around much-needed information in a timely manner. To enable both upstream and downstream space activities, we need to support space education activities. So what is the key role of space education? Space education proliferates space technology know-how and satellite product development. It helps us, it feeds into the upstream and downstream by proliferating space technology knowledge through educational platforms such as building CubeSats and processing the outputs of satellites such as imagery and other data. So we do that through training programs and technical lectures through our university-based projects and with PhilSat. Underpinning these activities is the importance of strengthening our capabilities and transferring knowledge. In building space technologies, we are capacitating our country to build complex and difficult systems, which can be at the core of differentiated, distinguished, and defensible products and services. The hands-on approach to building satellites equips our scientists and engineers with the necessary skills needed to advance our space technology program. Through know-how transfer and retention mechanisms that are built in or inherent in our programs, we can build a strong knowledge workforce. Through space science outreach programs, we can inspire and engage future space researchers, scientists, and engineers. In connection with this, we are creating and enhancing a robust space education and awareness program that will hopefully spark even more curiosity and entice the younger generation to pursue space-related careers, which I describe in the next few slides. First, the series of Maya nanosatellites that we have been building provide local opportunities to acquire space technology know-how and hands-on experience in satellite development. This contributes to building human resources that are critical in sustaining the country's space initiatives. This is currently being done through a master's degree program at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Maya 3 and Maya 4, started in January 2019, constitute the first batch of Philippine university-developed nanosatellites. Despite the challenges presented by COVID-19, the development was completed, and the nanosats were handed over to the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, last April. And they were, of course, recently launched just last Sunday into the ISS. The nanosats are intended to demonstrate remote data collection system and optical imaging. After Maya 3 and Maya 4, we will have Maya 5 and Maya 6. One more batch. A second batch of 8 scholars are now studying the missions and improvements for Maya 5 and Maya 6. This was started in September last year, 1 year ago. So overall, through this project, at least 16 scholar engineers are being trained, and in the process, 4 CubeSats will be produced. So we are working on a program where the know-how we have gained through the Maya platform will be cascaded to high school students in the country. First, by enabling them to propose space missions or science measurements to be conducted on our CubeSat platforms, which can then, of course, be launched into space. So why CubeSats? Well, we want to change perceptions that perhaps space is not for everyone, it's for rich countries only, and the Philippines cannot contribute. However, we are doing it now. Eventually, even senior high school and high school students, we want them to be able to do it too. So as part of that target of bringing space technology, satellites, and CubeSats to STEM, we have been conducting various science outreach activities. It is difficult now with the lockdowns, but we do what we can, and hopefully my presentation here today helps bring this message across. We always welcome young Filipinos to our laboratories, to our operation centers, to see the actual work being done in creating value in space for and from Filipinos and for the world. Also in the works is the development, therefore, of a one unit CubeSat kit as a collaboration between PhilSA and the Stamina for Space Step Up project in UP Diliman. This kit uses commercially available and easily accessible parts designed specifically for teaching space science and technology concepts to our educators. This includes development of training manuals or materials and offering of hands-on training and lectures to teachers. So we hope to bring good news about the start of this program very soon. We can also engage different members of the community to contribute through citizen science. For instance, students and teachers can participate in the data collection and the scientific process by providing data that fill the gaps. This not only helps traditional scientists who are working on satellite data sets and related information, but it also benefits the students and teachers alike in gaining better understanding of how satellite data is used. So we aim to promote various tools that enable participatory science. The measurements that you can make on your mobile phone, for example, can help us perhaps validate and calibrate the images and data obtained by our satellites. So here's an example shown of such platforms shown in the slide. Also, there's a locally developed app from my colleagues in the Advanced Science and Technology Institute called KUHA that also promotes citizen science. So this aligns with how the PhilSA aims to mobilize readily available satellite data and in situ measurements, which can be shared with the public, perhaps through a dashboard. So this information is will be right at our fingertips, and every measurement counts. So with that in mind, here at PhilSA, we have dedicated ourselves to building a division that is for space science education and awareness. We call it a Space Education and Scholarship Division. It has the following functions: to develop, implement, and enhance education and public awareness programs in space science technology applications, or SSTA, to pursue STEM engagement and partnerships with academic, education, and research institutions, to develop, implement, and enhance institution building and scholarship programs for local and overseas studies in SSTA-related fields, and to provide grants and contributions in support of programs or projects relating to SSTA. So, part of the work of that division, we conducted a baseline assessment with the goal to really understand the current status of space education in the Philippines, so we can properly assess and develop a space education program that is grounded in our local context and needs. So the baseline assessment on Philippine space education is a survey conducted to enable PhilSA to respond to the needs of schools and teachers in order to prepare them in integrating space education in their curricular and co-curricular activities. The purpose of the survey is to collect baseline data and assess the status of space education and awareness in the country, which can yield recommendations on how space science topics and competencies can be strengthened in future curriculum revisions, a better understanding of the needs of schools for the implementation of curricular and co-curricular activities that promote space education and awareness, and also ideas about public outreach and awareness activities and programs related to space that are suitable for Philippine schools. We also promote research exchanges to our fellowship program called ASPIRE, which stands for Advancing Space in the Philippines through Innovation and Research Exchanges Fellowship. Okay. This will be, apologies, sorry. Okay, I'm back. This will be implemented by the PhilSci in partnership with universities across the country. Now, the ASPIRE Fellowship Program aims to directly engage experts from the academe to conduct innovative research activities with the agency. So its goals are, here we go. Its goals are threefold: research and development, advancing space science and technology by combining university talents with in-house scientists and engineers, culture, cultivating an environment that fosters scientific knowledge and cooperation, and people, provide a steady stream of competent researchers to the development and enhancement of programs and facilities. Last but definitely not least, we are launching a scholarship program, the PhilSci Ad Astra, which stands for Advanced Degrees for Accelerating Strategic Space R&D Applications. PhilSci Ad Astra scholarship program is established to enable outstanding Filipino students to pursue local or international postgraduate studies in line with the key development areas of the PhilSci. So the establishment of this scholarship program reinforces our commitment to developing a holistic space ecosystem for the country. We want to support scholars who wish to contribute to various multidisciplinary fields associated with space, such as promoting space industry, space diplomacy, space law and policy, space economics, and of course, space engineering and space science. As space is a multidisciplinary ecosystem, we highlight the importance of advanced studies through opportunities such as postgraduate degrees enabled by partnerships between PhilSci and local and foreign universities. In doing so, we provide a steady stream of competent researchers which will help our country keep up with global competitiveness in space research, thus helping improve the country's standing in the international space scientific community. So PhilSci will fund and support scholars in space science and technology and related studies, including small satellite development in the universities. These advanced studies in space science and technology and applications will help build a steady stream of competent researchers. So we encourage everyone, of course you, the audience, to not stop at doing a bachelor's or a master's degree. Why not aim for a doctoral degree as well? So what is the value and essence of a doctoral degree? A doctoral degree is an advanced graduate or professional degree that demonstrates mastery in a particular subject area. It usually takes 3 to 4 years to complete, sometimes more, post-bachelor's and master's degree. So why pursue a doctorate degree? Career value. Having a doctorate degree can be a key factor in gaining employment after graduation, especially in specialized and highly technical fields in space science and technology. It can help ensure long-term career progression and increases professional credibility. The skills value, having a doctorate degree will equip us with specialized skills and knowledge in our chosen field. This may range from technical skills to abstract cognitive skills. At some point during one's doctorate studies, one may engage in various activities such as teaching, public engagements, among others. The skills developed through these activities are invaluable and can be used in other roles that we will take. Social value. During the course of one's PhD studies, one will form relationships with fellow students. At this stage, we are already forming and expanding our research and social network. These relationships are important in our career when we need to tap various experts in a field for collaborating. And personal value. Earning a doctorate degree is a great achievement for all who earned it and a great source of pride. It broadens our perception of the world, encourages positive perception of one's identity, and strengthens resilience in adversarial situations directly related to our field. So let me talk a little bit about PhDs. Here I will share the work of Professor Matt Might entitled An Illustrated Guide to a PhD. So let's begin. So let's imagine a circle that contains all of human knowledge, such as this. Now, by the time we finish elementary, we know a little bit, something like that, blue dot, perhaps even exaggerated. By the time we finish high school, we know a little bit more. And that's the green circle there. Perhaps a little bump there because we do take some kind of a track specialization in our senior high school. Okay. Now, with a bachelor's degree, we gain what we call a specialty. So we still have that well-roundedness, perhaps with the general education courses, and then you have that bump, which denotes the specialization. Now, a master's degree deepens that specialty as such. Now, as a graduate student, the #1 job is to read, in particular, read research papers. The #2 job is to write research papers. And reading and writing research papers takes us to the edge of knowledge. You see there, we are now at the boundary of knowledge. So once we're at the boundary, once we're at the edge of knowledge in that particular area, then we focus. We push at that boundary for a few years until one day, one glorious day, the boundary gives way. Like that. So let me replay that. You might have missed it. Until one day, the boundary gives way. Like that. And that little dent, that dent you've made is called a PhD. Right there. Of course, the world looks different to us now. That's what we know. Whatever it is that we studied, we know very well, and that's our world. But don't forget the big picture. So that's a PhD. It's a bump that contributes to expanding the collective understanding of humankind. Imagine many Filipinos pushing at the edge of knowledge. So we can contribute to expanding know-how, scientific know-how, know-how in other fields as well. And we can use this know-how to benefit our country. So that is perhaps the value of doing a PhD, is we're contributing to the collective understanding of humankind, of our surroundings, of our environment, of our world. So keep pushing, because according to Professor Matt Might, someday somebody will solve or will be able to bridge this gap. For somebody who is suffering a rare disease that nobody really knows how to diagnose yet, maybe somebody will arrive, will push hard enough at the boundary so that that so far unknown knowledge will become part of the collective human understanding. So, when we do a PhD, we push at the boundaries of knowledge. We try to make a contribution, incremental or substantive one. So a PhD is an incremental yet substantive contribution to the pool of knowledge of humankind. Let us not think of it as our life's work, because our life's work is a canvas that is continuously being painted. In that sense, treating graduate studies and PhD as our life's work will likely mean that we will never complete it. What is really more important is what one does after one completes a PhD. It is about the journey and not the destination. The skills earned while doing a PhD are ones which will serve us well as we take on new challenges, which as PhD holders, we are expected to face and tackle. So now my further take on this. Beyond the PhD, do the T. So you already are very good in your vertical skills, but try to reach out and have this horizontal span, perhaps characterized by having team building, communication, project management skills, and also empathy. Let me explain. When you get your PhD, you're expected to be deep. That means you have a solid foundation and focus that results in a specialized vertical expertise. That needs to be complemented by horizontal bridging skills, such as teamwork, communication, project management, and empathy. This results in what we call a T-shaped person. As we build up our programs in PhilSA, I'd like to introduce one of our guiding principles. This is the concept of T-shaped people and institutions. Space, like other scientific fields, is an interdisciplinary endeavor. When we build stuff for space, we need T-shaped people and institutions. This T is a metaphor which represents the individual's depth and breadth of skills. Having the requisite depth of skills in one's field of expertise is denoted by the vertical bar. In other words, you're expected to be good at what you do. Now, acquiring a breadth of skills and the ability to collaborate across disciplines with experts in other areas, as well as applying knowledge in areas of expertise other than one's own, is depicted by the horizontal bar. So, do you consider yourself T-shaped? Can you be capable of becoming one? Of course. We certainly need you. By sustaining and continuously developing this crucial interlinkage between people, capabilities, and infrastructure, we're confident about achieving our goal of growing and enhancing endogenous capacity in space science technology applications. The PhilSA leverages emergent capacity in SSTA in the Philippines, and we shall grow and expand these resources by further developing people, capabilities, relevant infrastructure, and a conducive environment for sustainable innovation in the peaceful uses of outer space. So it's important that our personnel continue to engage in targeted training activities, collaborative opportunities, and productive exchanges in scientific and technological know-how. In doing so, their valuable skills will be holistically nurtured towards further productive contributions for the country and for the international community. So let me end by reiterating our vision and mission. At the PhilSA, we envision a Filipino nation bridged, uplifted, and empowered through the peaceful uses of outer space. And our mission is to promote and sustain a robust Philippine space ecosystem that adds and creates value in space for and from the world, for and from Filipinos and for the world. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. And pleasant day to all.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation. Scientists and newborn origination, simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na sama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa hamak teknolohiya. The streets will fly together, advance the wheels of science.
All right. So thank you very much, Dr. Marciano, for that remarkable presentation, and especially for sharing information on the possible career path for our learners should they consider to take the course related to space science. And you also presented on how it is integrated and can be integrated in classroom instruction. And also thank you for promoting it through a number of programs and scholarships that you have for those who consider the path seriously. And, you know, amazing, because you're truly an educator, and we appreciate the use of analogy to encourage our students to pursue higher to the highest degree in education. So I'm sure a lot of our participants right now can't wait to ask some questions. We have a number here. So we would like to encourage more questions. Should you have any, feel free to type them in the chat box. So the first question here, sir, this is very interesting. That everybody knows the intricacies of satellites, but how do you connect the use of other satellite to our national security, if there's even a connection?
Okay, thank you for that question. Certainly, that's one application of space technologies. Well, national security, I should also say, is perhaps not just about defense or, I guess, military. It's also about securing resources for a country so that we can guarantee that Filipinos get to use them. So, for example, marine resources, fishing, of course, areas where we can plant, areas where we can fish. So it's also about securing livelihood for Filipinos. And if I can focus on that example, you know, satellite images can help monitor coastal areas, areas of bodies of water, fishing grounds, and also crop areas, so that we can get more valuable information, that we can make better decisions, and our programs can become more effective. So that's one way we can look at how space science and technology leads to securing national development, which is one aspect of national security. Of course, the other aspects of national security, such as maritime domain awareness and of course, for applications in our defense and military, that seems rather straightforward. I guess when we have eyes above, then we can have more visibility. But yeah, so there's a different dimension to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that very comprehensive answer. We have another one here from Camilla Grishay de la Cruz. If she's curious if there are female aerospace engineers in your work, and actually these are 3 questions, but they're interrelated. So will you urge female students to consider taking courses in space technology? And how will you inspire students? You've been inspiring us, sir. How will you inspire students like me, or like her, to take this career path?
So let me start with the first question, if I recall it. Are there female aerospace engineers in our work? Definitely, yes. And I'm, of course, in fact, we have had female engineers leading our teams as well in the development of the satellite. So the answer is yes. And will I urge female students to consider taking courses in space technology? Definitely, definitely. And how will we inspire students to take a career in space? Well, hopefully the examples we've shown, such as the other aspects of space. You know, when we, for example, build spacecraft, satellites, where we first train them down towards Earth, that's something that we can immediately employ in terms of helping the environment and the programs that we have, even to the community level. So it's with access to these technologies, by using satellites and building satellites, you can contribute to creating impact in our society, in our country, by helping our policymakers make better decisions, as well as contributing to the pursuit of knowledge. You know, by that circle, when you want to push at the boundary, you're contributing new know-how to humankind by exploring space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. This one is from Hernel Nino Juanico. He's curious what courses should be taken in order to partake the career path in space technology development.
Okay. As of now, of course, there are courses, science and engineering courses in general. Could be biology, chemistry, physics, material science, mechanical engineering, electrical, electronics, industrial engineering. I guess any science or engineering courses can lead you to a career in space. You know, you can even take management courses, and also you can study even policy and law and have economics and have a career in space. Because in particular with the things that we're doing in space, these are, I guess, long-term projects, and we need to be able to assess the impact of these projects in our society. So that's the role of policy and law and economics even. But of course, that is based on the accomplishments of our engineers and scientists who are at the forefront of pushing the technology forward. So I would say any course in engineering or sciences, and even in other fields, you have a place in our space ecosystem.
Thank you, sir. I think you also answered the next question that I was supposed to ask. But this one is more specific for UP, because it says here, other than BS Physics and BS Astronomy degree programs, which are offered in University of Philippines, or I'm sorry, in Philippine universities rather, Philippine universities, what other degree programs are aligned with career opportunities in PhilSA, so in your agency?
Well, yeah, let me, I guess, just go back to my previous answer. Yeah, you take a course, any course in science, engineering, yeah, and even economics. There's room in PhilSA for you.
Right. Thank you, sir. What other than remote sensing, what are the capabilities of our artificial satellites? That's the next question.
Okay, well, I guess there is some, apart from taking pictures, Diwata 2 in particular has an amateur radio, which I think should interest you all, because you can apply for an amateur radio license. It's a relatively straightforward exam, I am told, administered by the NTC. And if you have that license, you can communicate directly with our satellite using a handheld unit, an amateur radio unit, and you can build your own antenna. And whenever Diwata 2 passes overhead, you can point your antenna, go outside in a safe area, and then point your antenna towards Diwata 2, and you have an app that tracks Diwata 2 as it passes overhead, and you can start talking to people. If you just search on YouTube and on the web, people contributing recordings of themselves communicating with Diwata 2. And these are not just Filipinos, these are people across the world. Whenever Diwata 2 passes over other countries, they know that it has an amateur radio and they use it. It's open and you can talk to other people. So that's, in our country, that's also useful in times of emergencies and disasters. You know, when a typhoon passes, then sometimes the towers go down, there's no cell phone service. But if Diwata 2 passes overhead, we can have amateur radio enthusiasts reporting on the scene and communicating what is needed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have another very interesting question here because you mentioned earlier that we are not a rich country. Of course, we know that, but we can contribute. But the question here is sending a Filipino astronaut to space part of the Philippine space program. Or do you recommend
Yes, well, that's always a question that's being asked of Philsa. And the answer is certainly that is something that is being studied. Because I guess that's kind of inherent in the space program, although you see other countries which don't necessarily have one. But in our case, you know, it's really about the science. You know, an astronaut program is about somebody going to space, conducting meaningful scientific experiments. So we can, I'm sure there are many Filipinos who can be astronauts who are very fit for that job. We also need to bring to space meaningful experiments that push at the edge of knowledge, that contribute to the collective understanding of humankind. So we must accompany that with terrific, solid science coming from our country. So that's part of the study. So when we decide on putting astronauts or humans into space, the experiments that they will conduct.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so seems like no more questions here. Sir, I think we are so fascinated by your presentation and we truly appreciate your, you answering directly the questions, very straightforward, and you answered them very clearly. Thank you, sir. So at this point, as our token of appreciation, we would like to award the Certificate of Recognition. All right, so it reads, Republic of the Philippines, Department of Education, Deped Complex, Meralco Avenue, Pasig City, awards the Certificate of Recognition to Dr. Joel Joseph S. Marciano, Jr. for his contribution as resource speaker during the 2021 National Science and Technology Fair held via virtual platform on August 31st to September 3rd, 2021, given the second day of September 2021 in Pasig City, Philippines, signed Diosdado M. San Antonio, Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction. Okay, sir, we are really so inspired by you. So once again, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Marciano.
Thank you. Salamat. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Likewise, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with sciences and a newborn origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na magsama-sama, everyone, kahit na
Nearly half of Filipinos aged 15 to 19 are binge drinkers. Concerned about youth alcoholism, 3 young scientists from 1R Liwag Memorial High School studied the plant takipkuhol's ability to reduce alcohol tolerance, using the common fruit fly as subject.
Ako si Annabelle Santos.
Ako si Jessel May Lipiran.
At ako si Juliana Anupol. We discovered the potential of hydroxyethyl verticillata in controlling alcoholism. Yung school po namin, it has a lot of damp places. So, it grows abundantly. Turing lang po kasi sa kanya is like a weed lang.
Their experiment showed that after fruit flies ingested the takipkuhol extract, they became more sensitive to alcohol. Their muscle strength and mobility dropped, but retained their memory and learning functions.
This plant, the effect of it will have lower tolerance, so there will be lower consumption. Kapag ang tao, kahit konti lang yung inumin niya, magkakaroon siya ng imbalance sa movement. It pushes them to stop drinking.
Someday, they hope their discovery will be used to manufacture supplementary drugs or maintenance medication. As first-time researchers, the team encountered one challenge after another.
We wanted to use Santala asiatica, pero hindi ganun ka-abundant yung plant dito. We found other plants in the same family.
We're in a province. There is a limited equipment, so we have to travel like 60 miles, which is Manila, during school days and go home at midnight, then attend school at the morning.
But these only made their victory sweeter. Their project won one of the top awards during the Department of Education's 2020 National Science and Technology Fair and was among the Philippine entries to the 2020 International Science and Engineering Fair.
It feels a bit unreal kasi we're not really exposed to research. When we found out na our study got chosen, all our hard work, all our efforts, hindi siya meaningless.
To aspiring researchers, their advice is to prepare for hard work, but enjoy the journey while leaving an impact.
The first things they should do is find something in their community they would want to improve or change, and then that would be the first step that they should take. And from then on, it will come a bit more naturally na lang po to them.
Welcome back to the last session for this morning. What we have up next is very exciting as we get to know the women in STEM who prove that what men can do, women can too. To serve as facilitator for this panel discussion, we have Ms. Lenartes Lights Viloria. Ms. Lights is the National Project Coordinator of the Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics, or STEM project of the International Labor Organization. Her mission is to encourage more girls to choose to take technology courses and to help more women working in STEM-related occupations to stay and advance in the workplace. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to know our esteemed panelists. Up first is Dr. Kathleen B. Aviso. She is a professor of chemical engineering, a university fellow, and the Assistant Dean for Research and Advanced Studies of the Gokongwei College of Engineering, De La Salle University, Manila. Next is the Director and Scientist 1 of the Industrial Technology Development Institute of the Department of Science and Technology, or DOST. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Dr. Annabelle V. Briones. Along with these ladies, we also have with us a recipient of the Burchard Scholarship 2021 at no less than the MIT, or the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She is the candidate for Bachelor of Science in Physics, minors in Astronomy, Science, Technology, and Society with a GPA of 4.9 over 5. Kasi raw po, nobody's perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Miss Hilary Diane Andales. Last but not the least, we have the Data Analytics Coordinator of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. Everyone, say good evening to Miss Krisha Lim. There you have it, dear participants, the Wonder Women of the field of STEM. Miss Lights, over to you.
Thank you, Ayet, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to DepEd for inviting us for the Women in STEM panel. I am Lights Viloria, National Project Coordinator for the Women in STEM for Workforce Readiness Development Program of the International Labor Organization of the United Nations. You know, in the last 4 years, my job has been to encourage more women to get excited about STEM-related occupations through our scholarships in STEM-related TVET, and also to help women advance in STEM-related occupations through critical soft and technical skills. So with the world of work rapidly changing with technological changes, climate change, demographic shifts, and now this pandemic, we have all been seeing the need for more people engaged in careers in science, particularly women in STEM. If we are to create a better world through STEM, we need to ensure we have a diverse group of creators, makers, thinkers, inventors who come from a diverse background of skills and experiences. And that includes more women in STEM. Today, we are lucky to have 4 amazing women scientists who are doing STEM for social good. No? They are doing work in STEM to design solutions to our everyday problems in our communities. In the next few minutes, you know, I'm super excited. I'm getting goosebumps. No? I read all their stories and they are doing such amazing work. No? And you will find out about their journeys in science as women. And hopefully their stories can inspire you as teachers, as students, and most importantly, as women to follow their lead in STEM. So feel free to post questions later to our speakers on the chat box and we'll try to discuss that later at the Q&A. So hindi na tayo magpapatumpik-tumpik, no? So simulan na natin ang ating discussion. Our first speaker is Dr. Kathleen Aviso. She's a chemical engineer and she also has a PhD in industrial engineering. Ano, favorite ko tong, among the engineering fields, favorite ko daw ang industrial engineering. You know? She has been listed twice, no, in the 100 Asian Scientists in 2021 and 2017. She specializes in creating mathematical models on helping countries to help curb the effects of climate change. Maybe even formulate strategies to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. I think this is what they call process systems engineering. So to tell us more about her exciting work, join me in welcoming Dr. Kathleen Aviso. Over to you, Kat.
Thank you very much for that introduction. So let me just share my screen for a very brief, maybe presentation about what I do. So good morning, everyone, and it's an honor to be here. So just a few slides. So
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation. Science is a new board origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na sama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa hamak teknolohiya. The streets of fly together, advance the wheels of science, from knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTFO, 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 stands for a better tomorrow. Steering young.
okay. All right. So good morning again. So let me just share with you a bit about myself and why I believe it's important for women to actually explore a STEM career. So I'm from De La Salle University. I'm currently a professor in chemical engineering. And I just wanted to say how proud I am with our institution that we were able to increase our research output growth by more than 600% in the last 10 years. So I think this has already been mentioned earlier during my introduction. Okay, so let me just share about my journey towards my career. So as a young child, I think I've always been interested in the field of math and science. And it was this interest that made me choose to explore a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering way back in during my undergraduate level. After I graduated as a chemical engineer, I did go to industry for about 2 years. And after that, I decided to pursue my master's degree, a postgraduate degree. Initially, I just intended to teach in the university, but I decided that if I intend to teach, then I might be needing degrees or my postgraduate degrees. And I was lucky enough that when I went to De La Salle University, they opened scholarships for the Masters of Science. So I chose to explore environmental engineering and management. And after that, I pursued to complete my PhD. And during that time, I really didn't know what I wanted to be. But I was very much inspired by my mentors and by the environment that I realized there. And so I decided and realized that how important it is to actually pursue a STEM career. So like what our previous speaker mentioned, Dr. Marciano, no? So one of the main motivations perhaps would be to contribute to the global pool of knowledge, because you can actually provide solutions, not just for national or regional problems, but even to global problems. And I'm sure everyone knows that a country that is founded on science and technology is the one that progresses towards more innovation. And I think we owe it to our country, not just to ourselves, we owe it to our country to contribute to that knowledge-based global economy. And so I really like sharing this particular ecosystem network, because we see here the contributions of researchers and scientists in the community. So some might think that the things that we do in the laboratories or in research do not contribute directly to the society. But in fact, doing good research provides tools and insights to government as well as industry so that they can create better policies, better goods, and better services, which later on trickles down to the general public. And I think it is really an ecosystem that we need to propagate. So I am a chemical engineer. So what exactly is chemical engineering? Essentially, it is just engineering applied to the mass production of chemicals. So when you know how to manufacture chemicals, it is about understanding how you can mass produce these things. And within that field is process systems engineering, so which was mentioned earlier. So it is actually the computational branch of chemical engineering, which originally focused on the design and operations of process plants. So it is also known as computer-aided process engineering. So unlike the traditional chemical engineer, my laboratory is my computer. And I think that's also one reason why I was attracted to this particular field, because I could do my work and as long as I had my computer with me. And it was really relatively low budget, so it did not require a lot of money. So we focus on the development of mathematical models, and for me, in our group of researchers, our applications are really for environmental decision making. So what we want is to try and figure out how we can engineer our industrial systems so that they can be more sustainable. And so these are just some examples of the works that we have done. So we focus a lot on the impacts of climate change and identifying technologies that can address climate change. And one of these would be negative emission technologies, which are not just net zero technology, net zero emissions, but really negative emissions in the sense that they capture carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and sequester it elsewhere so that greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere are reduced. However, at the moment, it has not been fully deployed yet. And so what we do is to try and develop mathematical models which can help support the large deployment of these technologies once they have completely matured. We were also commissioned by the National Academy of Science and Technology to figure out whether our carbon dioxide reduction emission targets can be achieved. And so we made a study examining the different available technologies and strategies to us. And we've seen that we can only achieve up to a maximum of 30% reduction. And if we want more, then we might need additional innovative technologies such as the negative emission technologies. So these are just some examples of the work that we do. Other things, publications and journals. So one of the biggest journals on sustainability is the Journal of Cleaner Production, which you can see there on the right, which I am currently an executive editor of. So this also takes a lot of my time, but I like the work because it lets you see how the field is progressing, and you can see so many things that are ongoing, not just for the Philippines, but for the rest of the world. And so I think that there are a lot of emerging areas of research, not just for chemical engineering, but the popularity now of machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques is a good, I think it's a good emerging area. I was recently invited to be part of the editorial board of a new journal that is being launched, which is entitled Digital Chemical Engineering. And for the longest time, this hasn't been considered within my field. But now we can see the interest because the fact that new journals are coming out. So this is one area that others can maybe explore. We can model large-scale implementation of negative emission technologies, looking at how we can further adopt circular economy strategies and its integration with artificial intelligence. And of course, extensions of the more traditional field of computer-aided process engineering so that we can further design sustainable industrial systems. And so that ends my presentation. And of course, I'd be happy to welcome any questions later on. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Kat. And thank you for sharing the work that you have been doing.
NSTF, we are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with sciences and a new board origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, taro natin sama-sama, everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa.
Thank you, Kat, for sharing the work that you have been doing. I love what you were talking about, negative emission technologies. You're not just targeting for zero, no? Lately, I've been monitoring the air quality index, and I am so bothered because it's so bad for our health. And to know that you are already doing this kind of work is really, it's really inspiring, because we definitely need that, especially now, no? And I was saying, like, I hope we have more studies that are being done on that. So I'll reserve the questions from our audience later, so that we can move to our other speakers who are just also sharing their equally inspiring work. So the great thing about Zoom is that we can actually fly from one country to another while still sitting down. So from Manila, from DLSU Taft, we are now going to fly to Vancouver, Canada. Our second speaker is a data analyst. She is a data analytics coordinator for the Master of Food and Resource Economics at the University of British Columbia in Canada. She designs and teaches data science workshops to empower students with the skills needed to conduct analysis in the food, environment, policy, and business sectors. So to tell us more about her exciting work, let us all welcome Ms. Krisha Lim. Over to you, Krisha.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh, I guess there's going to be a
NSTF, we are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation with sciences and a new board origination. Simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, taro natin sama-sama, everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago
Go ahead, Krisha.
All right. Hi, everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I'm Krisha, and I am currently a data analytics coordinator for the Master of Food and Resource Economics program at the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada. So in my work, I design and teach data science workshops to empower students with the skills needed to conduct analysis in the food, environment, policy, and business sectors. And you can see right there, that was me teaching the last term with the masks because of COVID pandemic. I am also a research manager for Dr. Ceci Cruz, a Filipino political economist at UCLA, where as a team, we conduct a variety of research related to development, gender, political economy, with a number of projects in the Philippines. Growing up, I actually did not consider a career in STEM. One, I grew up with a more entrepreneurial and business background. And two, a math teacher actually told me that I was not good enough for math. His comment discouraged me from considering career opportunities in STEM, even though I excelled in my classes in math and sciences. I was very fortunate that I had a fantastic female economics 101 professor here in Vancouver. She took me under her wing and encouraged me to pursue an economics degree instead of a business degree. She opened my mind to the breadth of impact and difference economics can make in various industries. And that decision really changed my career path and my life. You know, as I pursued an economics degree, I learned programming to analyze data sets and make data-driven policy recommendations that can have a positive social impact in our communities, and realize that STEM is not just biology or medicine or engineering. After completing my master's in economics, I worked in research for a poverty alleviation organization in the Philippines. I managed survey teams, analyzed data, wrote reports, and presented findings in conferences all over the world and in the Philippines, with the goal of translating research into effective strategies that would benefit households marginalized by poverty. And in this photo, once again, I was in Dumaguete actually training enumerators on how to collect high quality survey data. And once again, this experience crystallized to me what STEM really is. It's a discipline, a platform for impact, much like any other field. And at the very heart, it merges analytical thinking and creativity to solve problems and make our communities better than how we found it. You know, looking back, whenever I am at a crossroads, somehow God always sends me female mentors to encourage me to take the next step. So I also want to open up doors of opportunity for other women the way that they were opened up for me. So for example, we were recently hiring for a research lab headed by Dr. Ceci Cruz. And in the hiring process, I interviewed more women than men because just like Ceci, I also want to mentor more women in economics. And in order for that to happen, we must start at the most fundamental stages. And in this case, it was being highly intentional, even in just the interview process. We actually ended up with a very awesome all-girl power team. You know, I could not overemphasize the value of having women in the research team. Community development programs may affect women differently than men, and most of the time it takes a woman to recognize what's going on and identify possible solutions. Women also have different economic and social goals than men. So by having women on the research design team, we can account for gender differences, not only in the analysis, but also in the conceptualization and implementation of any program or research study. You know, as I teach data science workshops now to master's students, I wish that I was exposed to programming at a younger age. Here at my university, we offer multiple week-long summer programs in the STEM field, including programming or coding camps to kids as early as grade 1. You know, I think the Philippines can also design similar programs or expand existing ones and take advantage of students' summer breaks. You know, many students lose skills or have a pause in their educational development because there's no classes going on in the summer. This is especially true for those who are low income or can't afford to attend summer programs. Meanwhile, for others, summer breaks become an advantageous time for them to continue enriching themselves. So I think it would be great if these programs can prioritize to recruit girls and those that may not afford such programs. And I am confident that we have excellent and highly talented people in our country to operationalize such activities. You know, with a lot of career opportunities in big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, and all these buzzwords that you may hear from the different panelists, I encourage you young women to consider these areas as a career, not because it is financially rewarding, it is, but mostly because you, me, and many other women have the opportunity right now to influence the development of these technologies and ensure women's interests are also considered, and hopefully close the systemic gender gap. More importantly, we can use our work in these fields to contribute to the development of the Philippines, such as ensuring that aid monies disperse in a timely manner to those who are in need using satellite imagery of poverty hotspots, or in improving educational outcomes using machine learning that customizes lesson progression based on skills assessment. And if you are unsure about pursuing an educational track or career in STEM because math and science does not come easy for you, or someone told you that you are not good enough, it does not mean that STEM is not for you. Like any skill, math or science becomes easier with practice. Also, as an educator and policy consultant now, I realize that math alone isn't enough anyway. It is also very important to be someone who knows what kind of questions we need to be asking in the first place, how to communicate ideas well, managing relationships and conflicts, then the ability to solve math equations. And I hope that through the experiences shared by each speaker in this panel, you learn that STEM is highly applicable and relevant to our lives. Plus, STEM is very interdisciplinary. So there is always room for you to bring whatever talent and skills you have to this field. We need more women in STEM, and we need you. So I hope you'd consider STEM as you make decisions about your education and career. And we're already here cheering you on. And that's all I have to share. Thank you for listening. And of course, thank you to DepEd and the organizers for inviting me to be part of this panel.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation. Scientists and newborn origination, simoy ng kalayaan, chasing freedom, tara na't magsama-sama. Everyone, kahit na magkaiba, tayo pa rin ay isa. Ang pagbabago sa aghamang teknolohiya. Let's raise a flag together, advance the wheels of science, grow knowledge, improve lives, see that our dreams are high. Science communities, building commodities, NSTF4, 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 NSTF4 stands for a better tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Krisha, for sharing your work. I love what you emphasized on female mentors. No, I think that's one of the things that we have been highlighting also for women in STEM. It's so important for women who are into STEM-related careers to have these mentors who are guiding them and showing them the way, especially if there are still very few women in STEM. It's very valuable that we get this advice and encouragement as well, right? Because when you see another woman being able to do it, it's easier for us as women to also follow suit. And I also like that you said that your math teacher said that you're not good at math, but you still pursued that. I think that's something also for our students today. You know, maybe you got frustrated that you were not able to get the highest grade in math or even failed at that. I remember there was also another guest we had before that she said, you know, like she was not good in math in UP, but now she's at NASA, no? So it's only something for you to motivate you to do even better. So something to remember, no? I guess from there's really something empowering of teaching young people also programming, because you get to figure out, you know, the stories behind the data, and I think that's the value of the work that you do, no? All right, so from Vancouver, thank you, Krisha. We'll get back to you later for questions. So from Vancouver, let's fly back to Manila, no? Talking about mentors, no? And I think our third speaker is a great mentor, not just for women in STEM, but also for those working in government, no? I really like her story. I watched her YouTube videos at DOST TV. Our third speaker is an inventor. I think she has 4 patents to her name. She is also a chemist and she is the director of Industrial Technology Development Institute of the Department of Science and Technology. So sa mga taga-gobyerno dyan, no, it doesn't mean you're in government, you cannot be a scientist. She has also been added to one of the 100 Asian scientists of 2021 for her work. She received the recognition for designing a mosquito ovicidal larvicidal trap system aimed at reducing population of second-generation dengue mosquitoes in the country, something we badly need during this rainy season. So to tell us more about her exciting work, let's all welcome Dr. Annabelle Briones. Dr. Briones, over to you.
Okay, can I wait? Can you see my slide? Can you see my slide? Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And let me first take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this event, DepEd, Solomon Edu Calidad, and the Gokongwi Brothers Foundation, the NSTF, and the USAID for inviting me. And I'm greatly honored to be one of the speakers in this panel discussion, the women in STEM. So just to give you a brief background of what I am doing. So what I do, so I'm the director of the Industrial Technology Development Institute and or ITDI. ITDI is one of the 7 research and development institute of the DOST and the oldest research and development institute. We have celebrated our foundation anniversary, 128th anniversary last July 1, 2021. So if we say Industrial Technology Development Institute, it is a multidisciplinary institute that covers several fields of the research. We have the chemicals and energy, we have the environment and biotechnology, we have the food processing, material science, and the packaging technology division. And aside from the research and development that we do in the institute, we also have our technical services. We have our testing and analysis laboratory. We also have our calibration and measurements. And we also have our technology transfer or knowledge transfer. So as the director, I manage about 300 plus regular employees and 100 plus contractuals. So you could just imagine how big our institute. And my role, my job, is to set directions, targets, and operational policies of the programs and projects of the institute, conceptualize planning and implementation also, the programs and projects with national and international organizations, and then overall supervision and management activities, as well as establish linkages with local and international bodies. So how I got into STEM? So, of course, my favorite subjects way back then, in 1970s, I think, was science, mathematics, and history in my elementary. And then I am adventurous, curious, creative, imaginative, eager to learn. And I think these are the qualities, no, that you should have if you want to pursue in the STEM path. And my interest at the time was tinkering things or doing experiments aside from reading books and newspapers. And then I know that it was then that through science, my ability was was developed. No? to ask questions, collect information, organize and test my ideas. Through science, you can solve problems, and all of that I apply that even up to now. And then when I proceed to my high school, my interest was in chemistry. And why? Because we know that chemistry is part of our everyday life. We find chemistry in foods, in the air, cleaning chemicals, emotions, and every object that we can see or touch. And chemistry deals with investigation of the properties and changes of matter, how our body exchanges oxygen, how the universe was created, all have a side of chemistry associated with it. So with these learnings and motivations, I wanted to be a chemist. So I took up BS chemistry in college. Even at the time, I already dreamed of helping the nation and fellow citizens to progress. And I finished my BS degree at the age of 19. And then choosing the field of science in college helps me a lot to where I am today. So I finished after I finished my undergraduate course. I first teach at the Don Marani Marcos Memorial State College in Cagayan de Oro City before I came to Manila to work at it was the National Institute of Science and Technology, and then it was later renamed to Industrial Technology Development Institute. And from there on, I stayed with the institute and got this position. So I rose from the ranks as a researcher up to now the administrator and manager of the institute. So how my current work contributes to community development. So ITDI, the mission of the Industrial Technology Development Institute is to contribute to making local industries globally competitive through research and development, transfer and commercialization of innovative and sustainable technologies, and provision of appropriate technical services. And our vision is to be the leading or recognized leading industry partner for science, technology, and innovation. So as a researcher, aside from being a manager, I conducted R&D on the fields of material science, chemicals, energy, pharmaceuticals, environment, biotechnology, packaging, food processing. And then we offered training on livelihood technologies. So that is where we develop or help the community and the SMEs. And with the R&D that we have developed on the various areas, we apply the patent and do commercialization of technologies through technology transfer or knowledge transfer. And we also do scientific publications. So just to share with you, one of the technologies that are being transferred already to the SMEs is the dietary fiber from calamansi waste. So this is already licensed to one SMEs in Zamboanga, and this dietary fiber is a functional ingredient for food supplement production for digestion and weight management. And then why I chosen this technology, because I'm one of the lead researchers of this, who developed this dietary fiber from calamansi waste. And then we also have our salt processing equipment. So this is to support the salt industry in the Philippines, and also the asin law that requires adequately iodized salt. So we develop the design of the salt processing equipment, which are the washer, the iodization machine, the spin dryer, and we also develop a gourmet salt. Now, so this is ready for transfer and commercialization. And then the famous is the DOST mosquito larvicidal trap system, of which I am one of the lead researchers. This is a group effort, and this was nominated as one of the 100 finalists, R&D 100 finalists in US. So now it's already commercialized, and you can buy this the DOST Ultra at Shopee and Lazada through our license adapter. So this is good for dengue or prevention, reduction of the mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti population. So what are the exciting areas of work that women can explore in STEM? No, so here in ITDI, since we are a multidisciplinary research and development institute, I listed here all the areas that the listeners can explore in STEM. And because of this pandemic, the OST also pushes for the bill on the establishment of the Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines. And ITDI is one of the lead initiator and implementer of that project and program of DOST. So why I put virology as top in the list, because during in this pandemic, we really need virologists. And we have virologists, Filipino virologists, but they're few, and most of them are also residing in abroad. No? So through this establishment of the Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines, we may be able to entice them to come back to Philippines and work in that institute. So we have here microbiology, pharmaceutical science, medical technology, medical science, biology. We have material science, data analytics, chemistry, environmental science, engineering, physics, statisticians, veterinary medicine, and the food science. So we invite the listeners and the learners to go into these courses if you decide to pursue in college in this area. And then I just would like to inform you that the UST through the Science Education Institute is offering scholarships to STEM students. And just to inform also our learners that STEM provides endless opportunities in getting scholarships abroad if you want to pursue masters and doctorate studies, personal growth through training, networking, and collaborations with scientists and experts, both local and foreign. Before I end, so in these trying times, the COVID-19 pandemic that caught us unprepared, only through science that we could solve this pandemic. So we need scientists to do more research that would prevent this pandemic from happening again in the future. Science plays a vital role in the country's economic growth, transforming our lives for the better. And one example is our scientists researching drugs for human health, developing diagnostics, test kits, and innovating materials. So my dear learners, I urge you to pursue the STEM career path. The country needs scientists, technologists, engineers, and mathematicians to advance the Philippines globally in science, technology, and innovation. STEM learning creates critical thinkers, intensifies science literacy, and enables a new breed of innovators. And we need innovators. DOST, so I already mentioned that we offer scholarship through the Science Education Institute. And let me end by sharing a famous quote from Louis Pasteur, a French chemist and microbiologist renowned for his discoveries of the principles of vaccination, microbial fermentation, and pasteurization. He said that science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch that illuminates the world. So I hope I inspired our learners to pursue the STEM path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Annabelle. Thank you, Dr. Annabelle. Napaka-heart ako doon sa quote mo, no?
We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation. Scientists and new born origination, Simoy ng kalayaan, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Briones. I love how you shared your journey, no? Talagang you started from your interest in chemistry, in physics, in math, and history, no? I think it's a good showing also of how diversified your interest should be when you are in science. And alam niyo, love ko ang chemistry din kasi, you know, my partner is a brewer and we have a chem lab here at home, no? And we're into food science and we love how we are combining these things. And maganda na sinabi niyo rin na binibenta niyo na sa Lazada and Shopee. So also, no, science is also not just about research, it's about creating products that you can actually sell, no? So siguro kung may code ka pa dyan, Miss Annabelle, you can even share it on the chat box in case somebody wants to buy, no? But yes, you truly are an inspiration, not just to women and girls, but also to government employees, that they can aspire to be among the world's best scientists, even while working in government. I think we should invite you to that STEM technical working group also. It's DOST is part of it actually, but I hope your office, the ITDI can also be part of it. No? All right, so we'll i-save niyo yung questions sa chat box because we still have one more speaker, last but definitely not the least. So lilipad uli tayo, no? Let's fly to Boston, Massachusetts, to a dorm room in the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and meet our youngest scientist in the panel. She is taking her bachelor's degree in physics, minors in astronomy and science, technology, and society. Mga nakikinig kanina kay Dr. Marciano, you will see somebody who's actually now studying it, no, in the university. She's more popularly known as winning the Breakthrough Junior Challenge. I hope you saw her video, no, when she was still studying in Philippine Science High School, where she won first place among out of 11,000 global entries for her video on relativity and equivalence of reference frames, which I personally love. She wants to specialize in science communication to help Filipinos appreciate and love science more. She'll tell you about that backstory on that, on the storm surge that happened. So let's hear more about the exciting world of STEM through Hillary's eyes. Over to you, Hillary.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here.
NSTF. We are the leaders of the future generation, standing tall with our gazes up in the horizons, a place where we can build an undivided nation.
Actually, yes, I am here live from Boston, so I am 12 hours behind everyone. But I am very excited to share my journey in science with you all today. So let me just start with my own personal journey in my education. So I started from Gabaldon Central School, which is a very small school from a small town in Leyte. It's in Abuyog, Leyte. And from that, I proceeded to Philippine Science High School, Eastern Visayas campus in Leyte as well. And then from there, I got to achieve the dream that I actually never thought I would ever achieve, which was to go to the best university in the world right now, which is MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And to see my journey from living in a poor neighborhood in Abuyog, Leyte to here being in a very amazing school filled with amazing people, all the budding scientists of the world. It's incredibly amazing, and I'm very thankful. And I would like to encourage everyone to also dream your own big dreams. And I wanted to dive more into, with that said, I wanted to dive more into the backstories behind each of these steps in my journey. So let's start from actually before I went to elementary school. As I said, I grew up in Abuyog, Leyte, and from then I instantly knew that I was very interested in science, and that was mostly because of my parents. My parents were very much science lovers, and instead of fairy tales, they would tell me stories about Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, and Charles Darwin. And these are scientists I'm sure you all know. And from then on, I got very inspired that, wow, just with the power of ideas, I could potentially have the chance to change the world, which was what all these scientists before me did. And I got very inspired by that. And I decided that I wanted to become an astronomer or an astrophysicist or something of that sort. I was really inspired by the stars in the sky. And after I learned that the tiny pinpricks of light in the sky are actually humongous balls of plasma in space, I was very mind blown by that. And after learning that the universe is actually incredibly huge, I was very inspired to study the whole universe itself. And that has been the path I walked on until today. And now I'm majoring in physics with a particular interest in astrophysics here in college. And then after that, we fast forward to my high school, which was mentioned in my introduction. I was very lucky to have received $400,000 worth of prizes, and one of those prizes was a $250,000 scholarship, which I could use to fund education in any school that I choose. But before this competition, I dreamed about going to school in UP Diliman. But then after that, after receiving such a huge scholarship, I decided to set my sights abroad. And that was how I eventually got into Princeton, Cornell, Stanford, MIT, and SUNY Stony Brook. And ultimately, I ended up choosing MIT. And so I am incredibly thankful that I got the chance to win this competition, because this competition literally changed my life. I would not be where I am today without this. And this was the awarding ceremony, which happened in 2017 at NASA Ames Research Center in California. It was one of the best nights of my life. And then after that, I ended up applying to MIT. Fortunately, I got in. And now I am here in my third year. We have not started classes yet. We start next week. But here at MIT, I became involved in a lot of things. And one of my main things is astrophysics research. The great thing about astrophysics, the great thing about going to a very science-focused university is that you get the chance to do cutting-edge research right from when you're a freshman. And that was one of the reasons why I came to this school, because they have a huge funding for research. And in this work I focus on studying ultra-faint dwarf galaxies, which are the tiniest, oldest, and the most dark matter dominated galaxies in the entire universe. And just last week, I presented my work at in front of the scientists and graduate students and fellow undergrads at MIT Kavli Institute for Astrophysics and Space Research. I was very nerve-wracking because there were a lot of scientists there, and they were all very established. They had such amazing credentials behind them, and I got to present in front of them. And that was really amazing. And of course, I was supported by my community of physics researchers as well. So I have my main mentor, who's Kaylee. She's a grad student, and my other mentor, who's Anna Frebel, who is a professor here at MIT. And over the summer, Ms. Lim mentioned this earlier, mentioned the importance of mentorship and community in doing research and as a woman in STEM. And I was very lucky to have been a part of, in this Zoom screen here, you can see my little community over the summer. We're a community of young researchers in astrophysics and near-field cosmology in the US. And several weeks ago, I was also given the chance to use the clay telescopes in Chile which we operated remotely here from Boston. So it was very exciting. This was exactly my dream when I got to do it in college. And besides astrophysics, actually, I was also inspired to broaden my horizons. As I said before, my entire interest was just in science purely. But after I took after the whole pandemic thing happened, after I saw the impact of the Black Lives Matter protests in the US, I really started to see that I shouldn't only be concerned about science itself, because science is interconnected with the rest of the world, with the rest of society. And because I started realizing that, I took this class from MIT on science activism, and we studied how scientists within, while they were doing their research, they started to push back against the wrong uses of science. And we see that in history, such as the building of the atomic bomb. That was just physicists. It was just physics, but it turned into a weapon of mass destruction. And also how biology was used to justify the killing of Jews back in World War II, and so on. And we see that today as well. We hear a lot of people saying that the solution to the pandemic is science, but it's not really just science, because now we have built all these amazing vaccines in record speed, but are we really getting these vaccines to the right people, to the people who need them the most, right? Is the distribution of vaccines equitable, or why are rich countries hoarding it, and so on? And I really started to appreciate this, and this is really why I have become a lot more aware that I shouldn't just be doing science, I should be branching out. And to everyone listening here, I don't encourage you to just be scientists. I encourage everyone to be critical scientists, to really contextualize what you're learning, not just the pure math, but also how it affects human society, because that's what really matters. And because of that, I picked up another research project on physics education, where I integrate history, philosophy, and sociology in physics education, which is very important. And then the main thing that I do really is science communication. That's what I spent most of my time doing in my gap year after high school. I took a gap year where I just didn't attend school. And I got to speak all around the Philippines. And in fact, I also was lucky enough to present my experiences and views on science communication at the United Nations in Vienna. And I also got to work with Knowledge Channel, with Adobe, DOST, and so on. It was a really great time. And since the pandemic, I've also been doing this Zoom style and also through social media. So it's been really meaningful. And my main motivation for doing this really is to inspire people with the excitement of science, but also to inform people about the life-saving value of science. So here, you can find this in my website. I say that my mission statement for science communication really is, as an astrophysicist in training who feels deeply inspired by the cosmos, I want to share the excitement of science, but also as a survivor of Super Typhoon Haiyan and witness of the pandemic, I also want to share the life-saving value of science. And that's really why I do what I do. And here at MIT, I'm also involved in a lot of clubs where I involve myself in mentorship and community building and so on. And back then, I actually didn't consider gender to be part of my identity. I was very lucky that I felt like gender wasn't a barrier to me at all. But as I've advanced further in my career, I'm still a student, but yeah, as I've advanced further in science, I've started to realize that, wow, there are really like subtle things that you don't notice. But then for other people, there are also very blatant things. There are also very blatant things that really tell you that, wow, being a woman in science is indeed quite challenging. And we can skip that. And I experienced one of these blatant sexism instances back when I won the Breakthrough Junior Challenge. And some comments said that, oh, she only won because she was a girl, because she was good looking, and she only won because this is part of the feminist agenda. And that is incredibly discouraging to a young woman who's very interested in science and who deserved the prize because of her merit. And it's really discouraging for me to be reduced to my looks, and I don't even think I look that good. But these are just the types of things that you may encounter. And I'm not saying this to discourage anyone. I'm saying this to inspire everyone to fight back against this culture, because this is not the environment that we deserve to be in. We, as young women in physics, and also as young men, young women in science, we deserve a culture where everyone feels included. And this is just a research project that I like to cite. So a lot of people who push back against diversity initiatives in STEM always say that, oh, maybe girls are just not as good in STEM. Maybe that's why they're not majoring in that. But here we see this graph here that the lower achieving males tend to major in science higher than the lower achieving girls. And that speaks volumes, because here we have equally, when we consider ability, the lower achieving males proceed further in their careers. And that says something, that it's not really just the ability. There's something else going on here. There's something else more systemic going on. And so as a young woman in science, I have 3 pieces of advice for a young learner aspiring to be in science. So first, find role models. And this was stressed by Ms. Lim earlier. I also want to stress this because my role models are really the people who have been keeping me going. I have benefited from the mentorship and the role, the modeling set by these scientists whom I admire a lot. So this is Anna Fable, my own research supervisor. This is Priya. We haven't met, but I really look up to her. Of course, Marie Curie, our own Reina Reyes, and then Erin Cara, who is another astrophysicist here at MIT. And then Fabiola Gianotti. She's the director of arguably the biggest science experiment in the world. And I got to meet her, and she is also one of my biggest role models. And next, build your community. Find like-minded people. Find your own space where you can feel comfortable, and then believe in yourself. Take up space. Really fight for your space within science, because sometimes when it really comes to it, you really need to occupy that space. And lastly, when you fail, you don't really fail. You only learn. A lot of young people are very afraid of failure, but to me, I don't see it as failure. I see it as a learning opportunity. So I love saying this a lot. You only learn. And good places to look for role models is Pinoy scientists. And then also this hashtag International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And yes, so if you want to come along in my journey, I have my social media here. You can also reach me through email and through my website. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Hillary, for sharing that. I like what you said on the life-saving value. Life-saving value of science. I think that's something that we want to remember by what you just said. Like, from being a Haiyan survivor, for those who still remember Haiyan and what happened there and how that inspired her to do more on science communication. I think that's something. Also, I hope you took photos of her social media channels, because her example, she's constantly posting what she has been doing, and it's really inspiring. I actually follow her on Facebook, and I am like every day just amazed on the different things that she has been doing. Okay, we're just gonna go quickly for questions. This has been such an interesting discussion, no? Maybe how many minutes do we have, Ayat? We just have 2 questions, and very quickly, no? So question number 1, what is your okay, ito, to Hillary's point a while ago about not being afraid, no? What is your message to all women who are still afraid to take the lead, not only in areas of STEM, but also in other fields? Girl, let me start with Kathleen. You might want to answer this question.
Okay, so thank you for that question. And I think Hillary pointed out a lot of key elements that we should, try to live by. It's about, believing in yourself and finding mentors. I think it's normal, it's normal to be afraid. So I think that's something that people should know, that it's not just them. It's not just you who's afraid. So other people are also afraid, and that's very understandable. But what you need is really like maybe a community that can support you towards your particular dream. Because I believe that, you know, having a mentor or having a community that will support you and will believe in you, if you doubt believing in yourself, will help you take that next step or that next leap.
Yeah, and that's also the thing about science, right? Because science is really about knowing these mistakes, and you study why this went wrong, and then you try again, or you try something new. And I think that's one of the key skills also, right? Of a scientist, if you are a woman in STEM or just in general, right? This is a key thing that, as Hillary mentioned, it's not a mistake, it's a learning moment.
Yeah.
No? So it shouldn't put you down, whether you're a man or a woman in STEM. No? How about for you, Krisha? What do you think? I remember you said that your math teacher said you're not good enough.
Yes, actually, I would like to say that, you know, we have to remember that our value is not defined by what we do or our skills. We are worth way more than that. And I think knowing that our value is separate from that will help us, you know, be willing to take risks. And also as educators, just like what you said, we have to be careful also on what we say, because our words can inspire dreams or break them too. So we have to be really make ourselves also available to mentor other women now that we are blessed to be in this position that we are in.
Thank you, Krisha. How about for you, Dr. Annabelle, especially coming from government? I'm sure you've had some disappointments here and there, right? Because that career ladder can also be very challenging.
Yeah, I agree with you. What I can advise, no, to our learners is that even if they are not really good, if you say they're not really good in mathematics or any field, but this is a learning process. And if you have the interest and you have the passion, you can succeed. So, hindi problema yung mahina ako sa ganito-ganito, but if you have the interest, yun yung kailangan, and then the passion, and then yung the right na mentor then and networking. And kami sa ITDI, I per se support yung mga regional science fair, national science fair, as the board of judges, and then we support them through the test and analysis ng kanilang mga innovative products. We mentor them how to improve it, at nakakarating naman sila sa national and even sa international contest, no? At nananalo sila. So natigil lang siguro ngayong pandemic kasi walang gathering in face to face, no? So yun yung support na naibibigay namin sa mga high school students, no? And even the college students who are doing their thesis, hindi lang STEM but the other courses also, no, economics, mga social sciences. We help them also because we have also a strong collaboration with the universities. Pagdating sa research and use of facilities, we have our laboratories are open for the students, no? So hindi mahirap. Sa umpisa siguro, but talaga namang we start from mahirap, and then later on it will be an easy path na for them. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Annabelle. Yeah, that's the value also of joining these fairs, no? That's national, like the NSTF. And sayang hindi face-to-face kasi iba pa rin when you see all these innovations happening and then you get to collaborate. I think that's one of the key STEM skills, no? Yung collaboration skills, because you will be working with different researchers, different laboratories, and it's important for you to connect also to them, no? So last but not the least, so sabi nila dito, so do you think that we have equal opportunities in STEM as those available for men? So siguro, Hillary, Maybe you can start this off since that was one of the last things you said a while ago. Especially now that you're there in the US, what do you think?
Yes, for even here in the US, I wanted there still is not the same number of opportunities, and this is sometimes it's because of like it's ngayon kasi po yung discrimination hindi na siya like explicit, it's more systemic. And a lot of these opportunities women don't pursue because of systemic things holding them back, like not equal pay, and then family obligations, and having to deal with coordinating with your partner, and then also all these other subtle but very insidious things that really bar women from pursuing these opportunities. So hindi na siya when scholarships are available, they never say, oh, this is for men only. But that we've moved past that, at least. So we should be very happy about that. But now there still exist these systemic barriers that are more hidden from that. But I'm very happy na there are a lot of diversity initiatives everywhere. And like even the existence of this panel is an example of that, and just bringing more visibility to women and the challenges that women in STEM face and their achievements, despite all of the odds stacked against us. So I think we should be very optimistic that in the future it will be easier. And for us, it's our job to make it easier for the people who come after us. But also I would like to also encourage us to gather together, speak as a community to fight for more equality in these things, especially when we recommend policy, because that's really where real change happens. So yeah, I hope that there will be more policy changes in the future, but we can be very optimistic.
Yeah, thank you for that, Hillary. Yeah, the community is very important also to push policy, not just to fight discrimination, but also to open opportunities. Because when we are part of these groups also, this is when we ask, we need more women into these panels, right? Or into the organization. What do you think, Kath, from the academe perspective? Do you see that we have just the same number of opportunities as those with men?
Actually, in the Philippines, we're quite, blessed, because in our country, the gender discrimination is not that great, or the gap is not that great. If you would speak to somebody siguro in Iran or in Pakistan, or in those Middle Eastern countries, the gap is probably bigger than here. So like Hillary mentioned a while ago, she didn't really feel that gender was a part of the things that she needed to consider. So in the Philippines, I think opportunities are abounding. We've seen greater research funds coming out, more scholarships being provided by the government. And us, for example, as an institution, I also sit in the panel for, accepting scholars. I think the opportunities are the same. It's really more like, are there not as much women applying to the scholarships? So maybe it is because of some things holding them back, or not really, pursuing a career in STEM, because they feel, especially in the engineering field, that it's something for the men. But in terms of that, I think the scholarships are there. And I think we should also take advantage of the fact that people are now more aware of that, being sensitive about gender. And so even though maybe some people would say that you only got it because of your gender, well, it's an opportunity that we should take advantage of. As women, if these opportunities are coming along, we should take advantage of those.
Yeah, it's some people say like those quotas are important to get us in, especially when there are very few women in specific fields, like maybe especially in the engineering fields. And that's just as important to get more women in. Also, we want to create that critical mass to show also that, that this is normal, and the more diverse workplaces you have, especially in STEM occupations, it benefits science in general also, no? But what do you think, Krisha? How about for there in Vancouver?
I think Vancouver is like similar, I think, with the whole economics profession in general. There are really gender biases going on. There's papers so many that you can actually research online that shows, if women present in a conference, they're gonna get asked more questions than their male counterparts, and a lot of just gender discrimination going on. And I see that even working in the Philippines. I can't say the number of times that I walk into a board meeting and I'm the only female in the room. So it really takes a lot of courage, that sometimes you're so nervous you don't even know if you should speak up. But I think I try to, lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg would say, and ask a question and make your voice be heard. And I think also, as I mentioned earlier, and what all my other co-panelists have said, once we get to this position, I think we really have to be very strategic and intentional in, seeking out and making ourselves available to open doors for younger women as well, and bringing them in, because sometimes we too will become biased and maybe hire another male researcher in our team. But if we can actually hire another female, why not? So I think we have to be very conscious in our decision making as well.
Yeah, tama yun, no? Being strategic and very conscious also of opening these doors for women. I think that kind of awareness, especially among us women, no, is very important so that we can get more women in. So palagay nyo, Dr. Briones, how about sa government? I know you've seen the evolution of maybe when you were starting, sabi nyo nga, di ba? You started from the ranks, no? Did you see the progression on how it has developed to more women? Especially in government. What do you think?
For me, based on my experience here at the ITBI, we are practicing the gender sensitivity. So we have gender equality, and we have more females working in ITBI than male. So more female researchers. So women here in ITBI are empowered. Yeah. So me as the director, my deputy directors are also both women. So at the management level, we have girl power.
Wow.
So yeah. And as I said before, there are more female researchers here in ITBI. Even at our execom level, our executive members with the division chiefs, we have more females than the male.
Amen.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I know it's not really what we call this a bias about gender, whether male or female, but I think female are really more hardworking. and have more patience. So yun yung I think that's one also a characteristics that in the research more female are working here at ITBI.
Walang kapaguran ba? No, but I think it's also important to emphasize there, when a woman sees that they have women leaders, empowered leaders there, it's really encouraging for them, no? Parang kung kaya ni ma'am, kaya ko rin, no? And I think that might be the secret also for ITBI, why you have more women there, because if they feel they are in an environment that they are supported, no? And their work is also recognized. Gaya niyan, kung yung director mo, ano lang sa Asian Scientist for 2020, aba, kaya ko rin yun, no? So I think that's the value also of having mentors and having your bosses doing that, because it inspires you. I mean, just hearing you is already inspiring for all of us. So I think that's very important. Okay, just last question from Jeannie Pino. Sabi niya, this is a different question. Do you also offer scholarship programs, doctoral degree for STEM teachers teaching in the public school? Maybe this is for you, Dr. Annabelle. Meron bang ganon sa DOST?
Yes. Please get in touch with the Science Education Institute. I think they have some programs for that. They have scholarships for that. So
I think, yeah. Sige, tignan nyo daw, Miss Jolie, ang pangalan niya?
Science Education Institute.
SEI, no? Kay Dr. Bio.
Yes, kay Dr. Bio.
Yan. Okay. So lagi kayong dapat on the lookout for that, no? Actually, there are more scholarships coming out for it because there are a lot of organizations actually wanting to have more women in their teams. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because you want more diverse teams, being part of the organization, because it does diversify, it does make your research better, it gives you different perspectives as well. Okay, so we've run out of time already. We're actually over time, but that means we've been having such a great discussion and such inspiring stories. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your stories, no? And we wish you all the luck in your work. I hope one of you here will win the Nobel Prize so that I can brag that I got to interview the first Filipina Nobel Prize winner. I know it's never too late, no? To our girls out there and women out there, I hope this strengthen your resolve to embark in a career in STEM. As you can see here today, STEM is not just about knowing concepts in math and science, It's about using these concepts to design solutions to problems in your community, whether it's to find a cure to the pandemic or design a way to protect communities from the impact of climate change, or designing models for food security, creating an app to getting you food to your homes during the lockdowns. The opportunities are endless. So now more than ever, we need more women in STEM creating solutions for better lives. Melinda Gates once said in her book, also a woman in STEM, in her book, The Power of Lift, when you uplift women, you uplift humanity. So let's commit to becoming a girl in STEM, to supporting women in STEM. If you are a man, it's important also for men to amplify voices. If you are a scientist, a male scientist, if you are a male teacher, it's important for you to uplift also the voices of our budding girls in STEM, because women have the power of improving the lives, not only of themselves, their families, of their communities, of the country, but also for the whole world, especially during these challenging times. With that, thank you for staying tuned on this very interesting panel. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. So over to you, Ayat.
Thank you very much, Miss Lights. What a stimulating and empowering discussion indeed. I am sure that our participants, both students and teachers, have a lot of takeaways from what our speakers had to say. We are so thankful to each and every one of you for sharing your time, experiences, and knowledge in this forum. And to properly express our gratitude, allow me to present to you a certificate of recognition. Republic of the Philippines Department of Education, DepEd Complex, Meralco Avenue, Pasig City, awards this certificate of recognition to our moderator, Ms. Lenartes Viloria, our resource persons, Dr. Kathleen Aviso, Dr. Annabelle Briones, Ms. Hilary Diane Andales, and Ms. Krisha Lim, in recognition of their contribution as moderator and resource persons during the 2021 National Science and Technology Fair, held via a virtual event platform on August 31 to September 3, 2021. Given today, September 2, 2021 in Pasig City, Philippines. Signed by our Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction, Diosdado M. San Antonio. Ladies and gentlemen, isang masigabong palakpakan para sa mga kababaihan ng STEM.
Pangarap kong maging isang successful na mechanical engineer. Pangarap ko din na masuklian yung mga nakatulong sa buhay ko.
Pangarap ko pong makapagtapos ng pag-aral upang matulungan ang aking pamilya.
The Gokongwei Brothers Foundation was founded in 1992 from an initial endowment by my father, John Gokongwei, and 3 of his brothers. Its objective is really to support the growth of educational opportunities for Filipinos.
I seem to recall in the Philippines there's not very much foundation work here being done. I worked and studied with my family and decided to put the Gokongwei Brothers Foundation by contributing shares of stock from me and my brothers. to form the nucleus of the company.
My father, due to various circumstances, including Second World War and the earlier death of his father, he was not able to complete his university. He's basically a high school graduate. But because of his innate curiosity and love for learning, he read a lot of books, he read a lot of magazines and articles. This helped him become a successful entrepreneur. He was able to pursue a master's education for himself, where he really found a lot of value in that. He saw that the difference that education made in his life, and he wanted to share that opportunity with as many Filipinos as he could.
Ako po si James Temprano, 21 years old, pangalawa sa magkakapatid. Si Papa kinuha as a technician ng isang company sa Mindoro. Nagustuhan niya yung pamumuhay, nagkaroon ng business, then sinama niya na kami doon. So doon na kami lumaki. First year high school ako, namatay si Papa, heart enlargement. Ako, mindset ko noon, wala na kaming pera. So, hindi ako makatapos ng pag-aaral. Nag-open yung GBF na mag-offer ng scholarship. Si tita ko, tinanong niya ako, James, gusto mong mag-aral? Walang alinlangan na sinabi ko, sige po, gusto ko talaga mag-aral. Nag-exam ako sa scholarship hanggang sa pumasa, hanggang sa nag-aral na ako. Doon na ako nagsimula mag-grow, doon na ako naka-realize kung paano mabuhay dito sa mundo to.
The Scholarly One program is a TESDA-accredited program that provides underprivileged youth with a one-year scholarship for mechatronics and instrumentation, which means that they learn how to operate machines in a factory floor. And after they pass the TESDA exam, they are offered jobs in Universal Robina Corporation.
Ang trabaho ko po ngayon is production operator. As a production operator, kailangan laging secure yung makina ko ng maayos na naiwasan yung trouble. Pangalawa, kailangan yung quality ng products laging nasisecure na hindi mako-contaminate. Sobrang laki na naitulong sa akin ang trabaho ko dito sa Universal Robina Corporation Cavite Plants kasi nakatulong ako sa pamilya namin ng maayos, gawa ng stable na yung trabaho ko, so regular na ako dito.
Our thrust for the foundation is STEM education, so science, technology, engineering, and math education. We believe that the path to progress for any nation is through industrialization, and we feel that through STEM programs, this is probably the best path forward.
My name is Rosan Carmona. I'm 24 years old and I'm the GBF JJ Summit Petrochemical STEM Scholar. I came from a simple family living in the mountains of Lubo. Growing up in a less privileged community has not only offered financial but also academic challenges. But that helped me realize the value of education. Working here as JJ Summit Petrochemical Corporation has been a great experience. JJ Summit is providing different opportunities, tools, trainings, and resources that are all valuable for me to be equipped and ready on the task I'm assigned to.
We recognize that uplifting education in the Philippines is not the job of one institution alone. It's a partnership, and our objective is really to work with very credible and capable partners such as De La Salle for engineering and the Ateneo for management.
All I wanted to do was graduate for my family, but I was studying my course, I realized that the theory had a lot of applications for my country. The Gokongwei grant has helped me not only for me to be able to reach those resources financially, but it has also helped my work to be recognized.
It's always been my plan to graduate with a master's degree. I want to pursue a career in applied mathematics. The GBF Next Gen Scholarship for Excellence assisted my parents financially in providing me a high-quality education.
We will continue with our focus on STEM education.
Hopefully, we're able to help a few thousand Filipinos achieve education access that they may not have had.
Gusto pong magpasalamat sa GBF STEM Scholarship for Excellence kasi po nabigyan po ako ng ganitong klaseng oportunidad. Nagbukas po sila ng pintuan upang sa gayon makapag-aral po uli ako.
GBF has helped me take that first step the moment that they granted me with the Next Gen Scholarship.
Vision to empower the future through education.
This is not just my legacy or the GBF's legacy.
This is our legacy.